Chapter 536. If it wasn't for the fact that Qin Ming wanted to pick up girls and raise Yu Qianzhou's ego, Yu Qianzhou would have been moved by him. He grabbed the wine jar and took a big gulp. The girls clenched their fists, their faces full of longing. Big-breasted Haze muttered to herself, so Yu Qianzhou is this kind of person. Beside her, Misty Rainbow clenched her teeth and said, I wonder if we'll have the chance to meet him. The two of them seemed to have forgotten that they were here to gather information about Yu Qianzhou and then provide it to their sect to capture. Pooh! Yu Qianzhou couldn't help but spit the wine on the bonfire. The fire rose with the help of the wine. Seeing everyone looking at him in surprise, he awkwardly explained, the fire is a bit small. They all looked at the bonfire and discovered that it wasn't small at all. However, they still added firewood to it. Qin Jiaxing added firewood as he muttered, look at your infatuated faces. That Yu Qianzhou only knows how to sing a song. He doesn't even know what he's singing about, yet you guys are so excited. Pooh! Yu Qianzhou spat out the wine he just drank. He expressionlessly wiped his mouth and pointed at the bonfire, make the fire bigger. Roast the meat a bit more and make it crispy. It's almost done. Any more and it'll be burnt. Everyone, share it. The others obediently followed his instructions. The pavilion was quiet. Only their area was different from the others. Spitting wine, playing with fire, and chattering non-stop, it was hard not to attract attention. The atmosphere that Fong Ming had painstakingly created was now a complete mess. Everyone's gazes were no longer focused on him. Instead, they all looked at the bonfire where Yu Qianzhou was. These people were very busy, happily distributing the roasted hare and roasted chicken. Bastard, Qin Jiaxing, where's the roasted chicken? Did you take it all for yourself? Fuck. Have you ever seen a chicken with 9 legs? I don't even have one myself. These two people's words were too vulgar. Yu Qianzhou immediately said in annoyance, F***ck, be more civilized. If you don't get a leg, go gnaw on a chicken's butt. Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing immediately lost their temper. After a while, the 9 of them were chewing and gulping down mouthfuls of wine from time to time. The few of them grinned and said that it was delicious. However, the few of them suddenly realized that something was wrong with the atmosphere. They raised their heads almost at the same time and saw that everyone was looking at them. Yu Qianzhou was stunned. He waved to the crowd and said, sorry, we'll eat first. You can continue to talk about Mr. Nongzhu and Yu Qianzhou. Right, didn't you say you were going to sing a song? Come on. Sing. I need a song to help me get drunk. The people around him burst into laughter, as if they thought Fong Ming was an actor. On the hillside, the red lips under the green veil raised a beautiful arc. Obviously, she was also smiling, but the others could not see it. If it were someone else, Fong Ming would have taught him a lesson. However, it was this guy who wanted to teach him a lesson during the day. Fong Ming could only swallow his anger. However, his face was not good. He said in a low voice, it's okay if you don't take me seriously, but don't tarnish Mr. Nongzhu and Yu Qianzhou. This guy was good at talking. It was obvious that he was using the two gods to suppress the other party. However, when it came to talking, Yu Qianzhou was not afraid of anyone at all. Moreover, Yu Qianzhou did not take the two gods seriously at all. It was useful to scare other rogue cultivators, but it was really a mistake to scare Yu Qianzhou. Is there something wrong with your brain? Don't use others to support you. When did I tarnish Nongzhu and Yu Qianzhou? Yu Qianzhou thought that he had never seen someone so protective of his grandson. He drank a mouthful of wine, picked up a half-eaten drumstick, pointed at Fong Ming, and said, anyway, even if I tarnish Nongzhu and Yu Qianzhou, it's none of your business. I did tarnish them. What's wrong with that? If the two bastards have a problem with it, tell them to come to me. Don't meddle in other people's business. His words were so arrogant that Fong Ming was speechless. He did not mention Yu Qianqiu. Fong Ming thought that he could scare Nongzhu by mentioning Nongzhu, but he dared to curse Nongzhu by mentioning her name. It seemed that he was not afraid that his words would fall into Nongzhu's ears. It was impossible for Yu Qianqiu to be afraid. He had scolded Nongzhu many times in front of her, not to mention behind her back. Fu Chen and Qin Jiaxing looked at each other. Their boss was so awesome. No wonder his family name was Niu. Yan Lan and the other girls were full of admiration. This senior might be even more powerful than Mr. Nongzhu. Otherwise, who would dare to curse a master at the middle stage of Huashan realm like this? The place suddenly became quiet. Only the crackling of the bonfire could be heard. Everyone was searching for the name Niu Yud in their minds, but it seemed that they had never heard of him. On the other side, Tianai, who was scared by Fong Ming mentioning Nongzhu, felt even more ashamed now. Look at Fong Ming's courage, and then look at his own courage. Fong Ming's face darkened as he stared at the man who continued to eat and drink after cursing him. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, he tossed the flute in his hand into his storage pouch and pulled out a zither. Then, he slowly sat down cross-legged in front of the veiled woman on the hill. Seeing that he put the guqin on his knees, everyone was immediately interested. They knew that he was going to play the song he mentioned just now. Yu Qianqiu glanced at him and thought, this guy is really talented. He can play both the flute and the guqin. Although cultivators from different countries are hunting Yu Qianqiu, I still think that he is a peerless genius that only appears once in 1,000 years. I love music, but I have no chance to learn from him in person. The few songs that I have learned are only paraphrased by others. I didn't get the complete song, so I had to compose a song myself. I hope I won't disturb you. As soon as Fong Ming finished speaking, his four brothers cheered again. He continued, it is said that the song White Fox was written by Yu Qianqiu when he first joined the cultivation world of Huaxia. He met a white fox that had been cultivating for 1,000 years. Feeling the misery of the fox's life, Yu Qianqiu gave it to the fox girl. This song has been sung in the cultivation world of Huaxia for a long time. Please listen carefully. The sound of the zither rang out slowly. After a prelude, Fong Ming sang softly with the sound of the zither, I am a fox that has cultivated for 1,000 years. 1,000 years of cultivation, 1,000 years of solitude. In the dead of night, can anyone hear me crying? In the dim light, can anyone see me dancing? The night was quiet, and the song was lonely. It had to be said that Fong Ming was indeed skilled. As expected of a specialist, his singing was indeed touching. Even Yu Qianqiu's eyes were filled with confusion. He recalled the first time he met Bai Suzhen. As soon as the song was played, everyone was immersed in the heartbreaking song and music. From the lyrics, they could feel the misery of the white fox that had been cultivating for 1,000 years. The heart-wrenching scene of Can I Dance for You Again appeared in everyone's minds. Yu Qianqiu was awakened by the girls beside him. They could not help but let out soft sobs. Their eyes were red and glistened with tears. The rest of the people were also sighing. When the song was over, everyone was still immersed in the song. They shook their heads. It was a very emotional scene. Senior sister, that white fox is so pitiful. The hot-tempered Haze threw herself into Yan Lan's arms and cried bitterly. Fu Chen and Qin Jiaxing were also in a daze. They had long forgotten to eat the roasted meat in their hands. Yu Qianqiu was speechless. He could not help but sigh at the lack of spiritual food in this world. A song could move people to this extent. Fong Ming glanced at the girl on the hillside. It seemed that she did not have any reaction. Even if she did, it was blocked by the curtain of green silk. He looked around and said loudly, What do you guys think of this song? Is Yu Qianqiu a genius? He is. The group of rogue cultivators roared in response. Some of them even exclaimed, "I didn't expect this. That butcher of the cultivation world actually knows how to play this song. Not only does he know how to play, even an uncouth man like me likes it. It's completely different from the sounds I used to hear. It makes me want to sleep. Tisk tsk. If I have the chance, I really want to meet this Yu Qianqiu and see what he looks like. Damn it. I am sitting right here. You guys have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai." Yu Qianqiu looked around. For the first time, he felt that being Yu Qianqiu was good. He wanted to stand up and tell everyone that he was Yu Qianqiu. The song is born from the heart. How bad can a person who can make such a song be? He must have been forced to do it. Fong Ming sighed. The result made everyone sigh again. Everyone knew that the reason why Yu Qianqiu killed the 2,000 cultivators was because the sects were hunting him for his treasures. Now that they thought about it again, they felt some sympathy for him. That Yu Qianqiu was forced to kill them because he had no other choice. The dream of the mandarin ducks and butterflies. It is said that this song was given to the vixen after Yu Qianqiu composed it. After hearing this song, the vixen's sorrow disappeared and she floated away. No one has seen her since. At this point, Fong Ming shook his head and sighed. Speaking of which, although the white fox's fate was tragic, 2 of the 3 songs composed by Yu Qianqiu were actually given to her. It's really enviable. That white fox has no regrets in her life. Sigh. How enviable. I wonder who else in this world can make Yu Qianqiu compose a 4th song. He didn't know that Yu Qianqiu had actually made a song public when he was training in the Demon Ghost region. However, in order to hide the secret of the training in the Demon Ghost region, the sect strictly forbade their disciples from mentioning it, so the song didn't spread outside. Fong Ming, quickly sing Butterfly and Mandarin Duck Dream. This time, there was no need for Fong Ming's 4 brothers to liven up the atmosphere. Everyone couldn't wait any longer and shouted, "Yes! Yes! Quickly sing it!" Yu Qianqiu looked around and saw the 6 women staring at Fong Ming with shining eyes like 6 female dogs in heat. This made Yu Qianqiu curse in his heart. Damn it, singing my song to show off. He suddenly remembered that he was also a pirate singer and was speechless. How dare I disobey everyone's orders? Fong Ming smiled and plucked the strings of the zither. After the beautiful prelude, he sang with a hint of melancholy. Yesterday was like the east flowing water, far away from me and can't stay. Today my heart is in chaos and worries. If I cut the water with a knife, it will flow even more. If I drink to drown my worries, it will make me worry even more. If I cut the water with a knife, it will flow even more. If I drink to drown my worries, it will make me worry even more. Under the night sky, the bonfire flickered. The group of people was relaxed and happy, and their hearts trembled with every word of the lyrics. The feeling of cutting the water with a knife, the feeling of powerlessness to drown one's worries, seemed to have been experienced by everyone. The song vividly interpreted the artistic conception. It couldn't be described with the word wonderful. No one had ever heard such a divine song. At the end of the song, many people looked at the wine pot in their hands and murmured, "If I drink to drown my worries, it will make me worry even more." What a beautiful song. The tears on Hazy Haze's face hadn't dried yet. She crossed her arms and said in annoyance, "Yu Qianqiu, where are you? It would be good if I could see you. You can't die." The other women were even more stunned. Even Yan Lan murmured as if she was in a dream, "If I cut the water with a knife, it will make me laugh even more." This Yu Qianqiu is really a wise man who has seen through all kinds of life. In just a few words, he has described the joys and sorrows of a man and a woman. Every word is a gem. Dream of mandarin ducks and butterflies. The title of the song is so beautiful. Yan Fei bent her legs and supported her chin with her hands. Her eyes flashed with dreamy brilliance and said, I really want to see what Yu Qianqiu looks like now, yes. Yan Qing said in a daze, I think he must be a handsome man. A group of love-struck fools. I'm sitting right next to you. Yu Qianqiu rolled his dead fish eyes and looked back and forth at the 6 women unwillingly. Then, he took a big bite of the drumstick in his hand. He looked like he wanted to tear the drumstick into pieces. After a few big bites, he put the bone in his mouth and chewed on it. Fang Ming smiled and looked around. The atmosphere was finally under his control again. Tonight was destined to be his night. He said in a clear voice, what do you think after listening to these 2 songs? Now you know that what I said is true. Not bad, this Yu Qianqiu is really something, a real talent, a real master. Even I, a rough guy, admire him from the bottom of my heart. Good song, he really is a genius. Everyone's praises came one after another. It was practically endless. Fang Ming nodded and said, the song is good, the melody is good, and every word of the lyrics is like a jewel. I'm afraid only Yu Qianqiu could come up with such a song. Moreover, he matched it so well that it's unforgettable. What's more, it's said that this is Yu Qianqiu's impromptu work. He's really a genius. Yu Qianqiu drank his wine gloomily. He really did not know what to say. This was the first time he was praised by so many people. Especially Fang Ming, who praised him as if he was the best in the world. Yu Qianqiu should be happy, but he could see that Fang Ming was clearly playing a trick. He was pouring water on Yu Qianqiu and then propping up his broken boat. As the saying goes, a good song needs a good tune. Fang Ming said at the beginning that he got the song from the cultivation world in China. The tune was not complete, and he composed it himself. The more he made everyone think that this song was rare, the more they would think that his talent would be revealed when they thought about it. This kid is really something. He's even more shameless than me. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly in his heart. Fang Ming composed the tune. It's obvious that he did it step by step. He's bullying everyone here because they haven't heard it before. I'm afraid he's going to play some tricks to make his wish come true. Yu Qianqiu glanced at the veiled woman on the hillside. She was the target that Fang Ming was trying his best to capture. I won't allow any bastard to take advantage of me to pick up girls. What he didn't know was that the eyes behind the veil were staring at him. Especially his cultivation that could not be seen through, it was very eye-catching. Basically, those who had interacted with him for a period of time knew that he was born this way. It was not because of a momentary lapse in judgment. Fang Ming, let's not talk about it. Sing that laughing at the world of mortals again. Yeah. Sing it quickly. Let's hear it again. The group of people were already addicted to it. They could not wait to hear the 3rd song, so they all urged. However, just as Yu Qianqiu expected, that guy began to play the trick of fishing for mermaids. Fang Ming slowly stood up and put away his guqin. He cupped his hands and apologized to the crowd. Everyone, I'm really sorry. Let's stop here for today. We'll talk again if there's a chance in the future. Because this 3rd song is a masterpiece among masterpieces. If I don't adjust my emotions before singing it, it'll be a stain on this masterpiece. I really don't want to do such a thing. I hope that you won't force it. It's not like you can force it. As soon as these words came out, everyone sighed with regret. Someone even shouted, how about tomorrow? At most, I'll wait another day before I leave. I want to listen to this masterpiece among masterpieces of masterpieces. Fang Ming replied in a cultured and refined manner, let's talk about it another day, another day. He did not give a definite answer from beginning to end. As he said this, he walked back to where he came from. His four brothers cheered and cheered loudly. You're called Fong Ming, right? Suddenly, a cold snort sounded out. Fong Ming paused and looked toward the source of the sound. It was the guy who opposed him during the day. He reluctantly nodded and said, "That's right. What can I do for you?" "Advice my ass." Yu Qianqiu looked him up and down in disdain. He said, Fong Ming, Fong Ming. From the sound of this name, it should be a righteous person who does things openly and honorably. It's a disgrace to a liar like you with this name. Everyone was taken aback. They did not know where he was coming from. Fong Ming's expression changed. He said in a deep voice, "What did I lie to you about? Isn't this the first time we've met? Kid, you're asking for trouble by being so stubborn in front of me." Yu Qianqiu sneered and said, "Let me ask you. You said that in the song you just sang, the zither song was composed by you." Fong Ming was nervous, but he forced himself to be calm. "That's right. Hee. As luck would have it, I've heard Yu Qianqiu sing these two songs with my own ears. Although his unparalleled and divine skills are indeed thousands of times better than yours, and you're like trash compared to him, but why do I feel that the tunes you two play are almost the same? Was it you who composed them? Could it be that Yu Qianqiu stole your zither song?" Yu Qianqiu said with extreme malice. Chapter 537. Of course, at the same time, he didn't forget to praise himself. No one knew who he was anyway, so he should praise him. Don't hold back. He praised Yu Qianqiu to death. Everyone was in an uproar when they heard this. Then, they began to whisper to each other and looked at Fong Ming in confusion. After listening to him play two songs, everyone was still thinking about it. Although they knew that he was showing off, they were still amazed by him. Now that they suddenly heard this, they felt as if they had swallowed a fly. Fong Ming's four brothers stood up and waved their arms in anger. "How dare you? Where did this madman come from?" "Niu Yud, don't spout nonsense." Yu Qianqiu turned to the four of them and said indifferently, "Don't think that no one dares to touch you in the ghost village. I don't care if it's a ghost village or a god village. Try pointing fingers at me again. Do you believe that I won't pull out your tongues and knock out your teeth right now?" Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing winked at each other. They seemed to be a little excited. This boss was too awesome. The six women looked at each other. They already knew that Niu Yud was a soul formation stage master, so they didn't doubt that he would do what he said. The four men's faces were flushed red. They didn't dare to make the first move, so they definitely wanted to save face with their words. However, they were stopped by Fong Ming. Fong Ming was a smart man. He could tell that this person's words and actions weren't just for fun. His eyes were filled with indifference, as if he viewed human life as nothing more than grass. He would definitely kill anyone if they didn't get along. Most importantly, they might not be a match for this person. "Why do you want to cause trouble for me again and again? Have I offended you in the past?" Fong Ming asked loudly. It was a very smart question. The meaning behind it was obvious. He was telling everyone that this wasn't the first time this person had caused trouble for him. He was slandering him again. Those who saw the two arguing during the day also nodded slightly. They suspected that this Niu Yud was really causing trouble for Fong Ming. "Cause trouble for you?" Yu Qianqiu said disdainfully, "Do you think you're worth my trouble? If I really wanted to cause trouble for you, you would have lost your life long ago. How could you have the chance to swindle and deceive everyone?" He was telling the truth. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to keep a low profile, he wouldn't have let Fong Ming off during the day. In his eyes, the people of the cultivation world had already obtained far, far more than mortals, especially those who harbored evil intentions. It was fine if they didn't cause trouble, but once they did, the harm they suffered would be much greater than that of mortals. Therefore, to him, it was better to kill than to spare. The word sympathy was something he had never even thought about. However, he thought that he was low-key, but in reality, he was the kind of person who couldn't be low-key even if he wanted to. His entire body was covered with hard thorns that would stab people no matter where he was placed. With this kind of character, how could he keep a low profile? Who knows? I believe that you have the ability to kill me. Fong Ming glanced at the veiled woman beside the leaning mountain pavilion and said in a deep voice, "You keep saying that I'm a liar, but you should at least show me the evidence. You can't accuse me of being a liar just because of what you said. That's a little too ridiculous." He could be considered to have swallowed his anger. Even after being ridiculed, he still maintained a certain degree of politeness. There was nothing he could do about it. The other party dared to turn against him, but he didn't dare to. Evidence. Yu Qianqiu raised an eyebrow and said, "I've already said that I've heard Yu Qianqiu play and sing these 2 songs with my own ears. This is the best evidence. Then I'll have to trouble you to prove that you've heard Yu Qianqiu play and sing these 2 songs, Fong Ming said calmly. That's easy. Yu Qianqiu casually waved his hand and said, "The last time I was still in Dayang City, 3rd Xan from Lingfang Valley brought Yu Qianqiu to visit me. At that time, the 3 of them were in high spirits after drinking, and the Thousand Sorrows Zither song livened up the mood. They played and sang more than 10 songs in a row, and those songs were like the sounds of nature, making people gasp in admiration. Among those songs, you played and sang. If you don't believe me, you can go to Lingfang Valley and ask 3rd Xan. Then you'll know that I'm not lying." Ah. Fong Ming choked and was stunned. Asking him to look for 3rd Xan, he had to have the qualifications to do so. Who was 3rd Xan? He was an expert in the late tribulation passing stage, his brother was in the early soul-forming stage, and his master was one of the 4 great men of the cultivation world. How could he have the qualifications to ask questions? It was already good enough that he could meet him. The itinerant cultivators looked at each other, trying to figure out Niu Yud's background. They had never heard of this person before, and even 3rd Xan and Yu Qianqiu wanted to visit him. It was obvious that he had an extraordinary background. Although Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing didn't say a word, their faces were filled with pride. The 2 of them basked in the glory of their boss and enjoyed the feeling of being the center of attention for the first time. In the past, even among the itinerant cultivators, the 2 of them were nameless people. How could they receive so much attention? This feeling was really good, as if he had followed the right person. Fong Ming wanted to say something but stopped himself. In the end, he shut his mouth. Even if he was stubborn, he had to have the capital to do so. Not to mention that he couldn't see through the other party's cultivation, his background was even more mysterious. This kind of person was not someone a small itinerant cultivator like him could afford to offend. If he lost his life before he could eat the swan meat, it would be really not worth it. However, he saw a scene that he shouldn't have seen. Just as Niu Yud was talking about 3rd Brother Xan, the masked woman next to the mountain-leaning pavilion with a green veil lightly took a few steps forward. With every step she took, the night breeze brushed against the green muslin. Under the influence of the wind, the green muslin skirt wrapped around the contours of her slender legs. The exquisite curves on her upper body were even more captivating. The hazy curves could make all things pale in comparison with each step she took, and each step was enough to stop one's breathing. Everyone followed Fong Ming's gaze and held their breaths, staring fixedly at the woman. Although this mysterious woman's face was covered, the green veil was unable to conceal the allure of her body as she moved. They did not see her devastatingly beautiful face, nor did they hear her melodious words. This was because she had not said a word since she arrived. There was no pretentiousness to deliberately display the charm of a woman. Everything was done so inadvertently. With a few graceful steps, she vividly interpreted the word beauty. The mountain-leaning pavilion under the night sky, the incandescent light, and the one-armed old man, everything became an illusory background. Everyone's attention was focused on the woman in green veil. The bright moonlight was blocked by the drifting dark clouds, and the moon seemed to be too shy to peep at the woman below. Bonfires were lit everywhere, shining brightly. The burning firewood made crackling sounds, as if to remind everyone to come back to their senses. However, everyone was still immersed in a daze. After a long time, the group of people who had almost suffocated to death finally remembered the matter of breathing. They swallowed their saliva and took big gulps of air mixed with the fragrance of wine. However, their gazes were still fixed on the woman in green veil. Damn it! She could bring disaster to the country and people by not showing her face. This could be considered as putting the moon to shame. Yu Qianqiu, who came back to his senses, looked up at the sky and found that even the moon had disappeared. He drank a mouthful of wine, looked around at the group of people who were stunned, and shook his head with a bitter smile. In his mind, the few women who were waiting for his return appeared, and he felt that he owed them too much. The night wind was a little cold, but the bonfires were still burning. Yu Qianqiu's body leaned back slightly. He supported himself with one hand on his back and one of his legs retracted. His other hand was placed on his knee, holding a jar of wine and gently shaking it. The wine was poured into his mouth from time to time, and the bright red light from the fire made the faint longing in his eyes and face unmistakable. The masked woman in green veil was watching his every move. When she found that he did not fit in with the crowd, her eyes revealed a trace of surprise. In her impression, there was no need to mention her own charm, and it was rare to see such a man. Of course, there was also that person, that arrogant legendary figure, who was also an exception. That person was too arrogant, arrogant to the bones. However, that person did indeed have the qualifications to be arrogant, arrogant to the point of ignoring everything. What beauty, in his eyes, was just a skeleton. When it was time to make a move, there was no reason to talk, so beautiful. Yinxia said dreamily, looking at the dazed looks of the men around her. She slightly lowered her head to look at the big chest that she was usually proud of, and subconsciously shrank her chest. For the first time, she found that it was really stupid to rely on big breasts to attract men's attention. Look at him, he just took a few steps, and the effect was far more attractive than her own chest. It is very beautiful. Yan Lan let out a sigh. After all, these women were women, so they were the first to come back to their senses, but their faces all showed a look of shame. The sound of the wine being drunk attracted the eyes of the women. The women were surprised to find that Senior Niu Yud was indeed a master, and he was not on the same level as the stinky men around him. The charm of the masked woman was hard to resist even for women like them. Unexpectedly, Senior Niu Yud did not even look at her, and drank leisurely by himself. He was really a knowledgeable senior. Sir, do you think that the masked woman is not beautiful? Yinxia was a little curious and dared to ask. The eyes of the women were cast together, and they also wanted to know the opinion of this senior. Yu Qianqiu came back to his senses and asked, what? Yinxia timidly asked the question again. Yu Qianqiu didn't think much of it and said, it should be okay. Women are beautiful in my eyes, but I haven't seen her face. How do I know if she is beautiful or not? Yinxia slightly pouted, as if she was not very satisfied with this answer, and asked again, does Sir only look at the face to see whether a woman is beautiful or not? Her figure is also very important. Yu Qianqiu was stunned, his eyes glanced at her chest, and then sent the wine jar in his hand to her sensitive part, and said with a smile, of course, the figure is very important. I like women with big breasts. Just looking at them makes me feel good, and taking them off is even more. Cough. The figure is very important, and your figure is very beautiful, hee. Very beautiful, very beautiful. Chapter 538. Hazy Haze's face turned red. Under the light of the fire, it became more and more red. She covered her chest with her arms, trying to block Yu Qianqiu's gaze. She whispered, "I'm not talking about me." The other women were seduced by these words and subconsciously looked at their chests. They also crossed their arms to cover their chests. Their cheeks were all red, and they all muttered in their hearts, "This senior Nyo doesn't know how to restrain himself when acting like a hooligan." Many people's gazes had already been attracted by the three words big breasts. Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing were even more dumbfounded. The two of them really didn't expect that their boss would actually dare to say such a thing in front of so many people. They immediately threw the veiled beauty to the back of their minds and looked at this rare animal like their boss. "What are you looking at?" Yu Qianqiu glared at the two of them, and then awkwardly explained to Hazy Haze, "It was a slip of the tongue, a slip of the tongue, I absolutely didn't mean anything else." However, the figures of the women shrank, a little bit to guard against thieves. Especially their eyes, they obviously didn't believe that he had made a slip of the tongue. "Damn. I obviously want to flatter you, but you actually treat me as a pervert." Yu Qianqiu opened his mouth and shook his head speechlessly. He was too lazy to explain, and he couldn't explain it clearly. Many people around him snickered, laughing that he was really a kindred spirit. If someone was more careful, they would find that the direction of the veiled woman's veil had changed a little. It seemed to be facing the direction of Yu Qianqiu. Obviously, she had noticed this Niu Yud. Fang Ming always paid attention to her movements and naturally noticed this. Just now, the beauty of the mysterious woman's graceful steps had left an indelible mark in his heart. Before, he had the heart to climb high branches, but now he had the impulse to get close to her. This couldn't be blamed on him. A graceful lady was a gentleman's desire. Any normal man would like beautiful women. However, if he was jealous of a beautiful woman, he had to consider the consequences. Fang Mingben had already suppressed his irrational action of clashing with Yu Qianqiu, but after seeing the peerless elegance of this beautiful woman, his heart began to beat wildly. Even if this woman did not have a mysterious background, it would be enough to satisfy him for the rest of his life if he could obtain her, not to mention that she might have a profound background. Originally, there were already signs of success when the conditions were right, but this Niu Yud forcefully stopped it. Moreover, such a peerless beauty had actually shifted her attention from him to Niu Yud. This was intolerable. Fang Ming's face was livid and shouted, "Niu Yud, how dare you say such obscene words in public? Aren't you afraid of being a disgrace?" Yu Qianqiu was slightly startled. Just now, he had thought that this fellow was tactful. He did not expect that this fellow would openly flip out at him. Yu Qianqiu did not know what was wrong with him. She sized him up in confusion and said, "That's strange. What does it have to do with you that I'm a disgrace to cultured people?" "I'm a disgrace to cultured people, so why are you, a liar, lecturing me?" "Ha! Since you keep saying that I'm a liar, then show me something to prove it. Don't spout nonsense. Do you think everyone in the world is a fool?" Fang Ming threw caution to the wind. He was sure that the mysterious woman was also someone who loved music. Otherwise, she wouldn't have played the flute alone in this lonely night. Fang Ming's bet was very simple. As long as the veiled woman was a person who loved music, she would not put herself in danger. Because there was still a song to be sung. Did she not want to hear it? Moreover, the one-armed old man who guarded the ghost manor probably wouldn't allow anyone to commit murder in the ghost manor. Everyone broke out in a cold sweat for Fang Ming. Offending such a person was truly not a wise move. Fu Chun, Qin Jiaxing, and the girls looked at Fang Ming as if they were looking at an idiot. In their eyes, a mere vagrant cultivator dared to provoke a soul formation stage cultivator. Wasn't he courting death? Oh! Yu Qianqiu put down the wine jar in his hand and sat up straight. He raised his hand to touch his forehead helplessly. The copper bracelet on his wrist was very eye-catching. He said disdainfully, I, Nyoyud, have always won people over with my virtue. Tell me, how can I prove it so that you will be convinced? Fong Ming's face tensed up. Nyoyud, I don't know if you know music or not, but since you insist on proving that I'm a liar, don't say that I'm making things difficult for you. If you can sing a song composed by Yu Qianqiu, then it will be a strong proof. He secretly prepared another excuse in his mind. If Yu Qianqiu really knew how to play and sing, and if it was the two songs that he had just sung, then he would say that Yu Qianqiu was merely imitating him. If it was another song, then no one here would have heard it. At that time, he could firmly deny that it was a song composed by Yu Qianqiu. Oh. That's it. As long as I can sing a song composed by Yu Qianqiu, then I can prove that you're a liar. Yu Qianqiu narrowed his eyes. In his previous life, he was a master of conspiracies. Even if Nyoyu did not leave a way out, he had already prepared for the worst. He had seen many people like Nyoyu. He snorted coldly and said, what if you don't admit that it's a song composed by Yu Qianqiu that no one has ever heard of before? Fong Ming's thoughts were exposed, but he still gritted his teeth and said, as long as you don't imitate someone else's song, then it'll be fine. Yu Qianqiu's song has a different tune than the one we're familiar with. You'll know it once you hear it. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard the sound of a lazy zither. Everyone looked toward the source of the sound. Unknowingly, a zither had appeared on Nyoyud's knees. He was casually playing with it with one hand. Everyone's eyes lit up. They knew that a good show was about to begin. Since Nyoyud could carry a zither with him, he must be an expert in this field. Qin Jiaxing and Fu Chun looked at each other. Yan Lan and the other girls looked at each other. They didn't expect Nyoyu to really know how to play the zither. In the cultivation world, there weren't many male cultivators who were willing to spend their time on this field. Of course, those who were passionate about it were mostly female cultivators. This was because women were born to be sentimental. The pair of eyes under the green veil stared closely at Yu Qianqiu's every move, and a faint look of expectation appeared in them. Yu Qianqiu stared at Fong Ming with a faint smile. His fingers touched the strings of the zither, and he began to play with it elegantly and skillfully. A beautiful melody slowly flowed into everyone's heart. He sang softly, I am a fox that has cultivated for 1,000 years. 1,000 years of cultivation, 1,000 years of loneliness, everyone was familiar with this song and the tune. However, it was clearly more emotional than Fong Ming's song. There were many subtle differences, but it was more provocative. Even if they didn't understand, they could tell that Nyoyud's singing was better than Fong Ming's. This was a very normal thing. It was a song that was passed down from the mouth of Yu Qianqiu. It would be strange if Yu Qianqiu himself was not familiar with it. There were no recording devices in this era, so it wasn't a big deal if the song was lost. However, it showed everyone what an authentic song was. Fong Ming's face changed color. After playing and singing for a short while, Yu Qianqiu changed his tune midway. He sang again, since the beginning, only the newlyweds smile, who would hear the old cry. The word love is so hard. Should I ask for the truth, or should I pretend to be confused? It's hard to be content with knowing too much. The tune was so skillfully switched between the two songs, and it was so perfect and beautiful that it made people secretly fascinated. However, after a few more lines, the sound of the zither changed again. It was no longer affectionate and had become aggressive. Yu Qianqiu's 10 fingers strummed the zither strings as he stared at Fong Ming and said in an indifferent tone, people strive to climb higher and water flows lower. If you want to climb higher and change your fate, no one will say anything. A fair lady is a gentleman's dream, and you're right. However, you're blind to think that everyone in the world is as gullible as fools. You're too naive. Fong Ming, if you have the guts to do it, you should be prepared to bear the consequences. If you admit that you're a liar now, I'll spare your life. Fong Ming glanced at the doubtful gazes around him and said unwillingly, these are clearly the 2 songs that I played earlier. You made some slight changes to them and you're calling me a liar. Who's the naive one here? Humph. I knew you would say that. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and sneered. With the movement of his fingers, the tunes suddenly became impassioned, and the audience's mood became bolder. Yu Qianqiu stared at his fingers and said without looking up, this is a song Yu Qianqiu composed for me. Not many people have heard it. On this lonely night, it's fate that we met. I'm willing to play this song for everyone free of charge. I'll sing this song to raise everyone's spirits. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up again, and they were filled with anticipation. Her red lips pursed under the green veil, which was a rare sight. Fong Ming, I'll give you one last chance. Yu Qianqiu tilted his head and stared at him. Towards this guy who claimed that Yu Qianqiu was a peerless genius, Yu Qianqiu wanted to give him some face. However, it was better for him to show off his talent in front of a beauty. Although Yu Qianqiu wasn't interested in the veiled beauty, it didn't stop him from satisfying his vanity. After all, there were few men who wouldn't be willing to be worshipped by a beauty. This was also the main reason why he came out to sing for free, since he had nothing better to do. Moreover, he believed that the guy's singing skills were indeed inferior to his. Since he wanted to promote Yu Qianqiu as a peerless genius, he might as well let Niu Yu do it for him. He was sure that the audience would be satisfied, and the peerless genius, Yu Qianqiu, would also be satisfied. However, the result of his action was that Fong Ming was doomed to be unlucky. However, Yu Qianqiu didn't like this guy who pretended to be cool, so he wouldn't help him. It was already good enough that he was willing to give Fong Ming a chance and a way out. Fong Ming sighed. It wasn't easy for him to get a chance to show off today. Why did he have to meet Niu Yu, who appeared out of nowhere? Was this really his fate? Although he had a vague feeling that something was wrong, he was blinded by greed. He forced himself to be calm and said, "True gold fears no fire, and justice is in the hearts of people." Chapter 539. He was stubborn, but his 4 brothers started to feel uneasy. To survive in the cultivation world until now, avoiding the strong and the weak was one of the rules of survival. This Niu Yu was obviously unfathomable. They couldn't understand why Fong Ming was so stubborn. Was it worth taking such a big risk? Justice exists in the hearts of people? Yu Qianqiu's fingers danced non-stop on the zither. He sneered and said, if justice exists in the hearts of people, why would there be a distinction between the secular world and the cultivation world? Everyone has justice in their hearts, and there's no need for us to risk our lives fighting and killing. Every man for himself is the most suitable phrase to be used in the cultivation world. His words caused the bonfire to fall into silence. Only the sound of the zither could be heard. Everyone was reflecting on their past experiences in the cultivation world. Truly, every man for himself was the definition of every man for himself. Many people sighed softly and poured the strong liquor down their throats. Your way of thinking is too one-sided and extreme. For example, this old senior. Fong Ming righteously waved his hand and pointed at the one-armed old man in the leaning mountain pavilion. He said passionately, not to mention his profound cultivation base, he has been silently maintaining the ghost village for countless years. He has not allowed the ghost village to fall into ruins. He has also provided a place for us wandering cultivators to stay. Can you say that this old senior's actions are also every man for himself? Nice bootlicking. I hope he can save your life in the future. Yu Qianqiu glanced at him disdainfully and ignored him. His fingers danced on the zither, producing an infinitely melancholic tune. He looked around and said with a faint smile, there's wine today, so let's get drunk today. When we meet again in the future, we will be passers-by. Nyoyud will present a song to relieve the boredom of fellow wandering cultivators. As soon as he finished speaking, his fingers suddenly danced wildly on the zither, producing a messy noise that made everyone's teeth go numb. Everyone looked at him with bared teeth. Just now, he was talking about warming people's hearts. Why did he turn into a disgusting person in the blink of an eye? Fangming frowned under the green veil. Fangming was secretly happy. So he was just pretending. Just when everyone's emotions were in a mess, the ear-piercing noise came to an abrupt end. Just as everyone relaxed and heaved a sigh of relief, a beautiful melody that was interwoven with ding ding dong dong slowly entered everyone's hearts. It was like when one was unbearably hot in a hot summer and was suddenly wrapped in a cool and refreshing feeling. It made one heave a sigh of relief, and at the same time, it was so comfortable that one could not help but want to let out a groan. As the sound of the zither gradually opened the hearts of the people, they heard Yu Qianqiu reciting in a bleak tone, "The winds and clouds of the world originate from my generation. Once I entered Jianghu, time flies. 1,000 years of cultivation, chatting and laughing, can't compare to a drunken life." The night breeze was cool, the bonfire was bright, and the crackling sound of the firewood could not pull everyone out of their trance. With just a few lines, everyone followed the melody and stepped into the turbulent cultivation world in an instant. The past was still vivid in their minds, and the rogue cultivators could not bear to look back. Complacency and frustration appeared before their eyes one by one, and how much blood and tears were mixed in them. How much did they give up, and how much did they gain? Did they give up more or did they gain more? They did not know how long this dream would last. They also did not know if these years of hard searching were worth it. Can't compare to a drunken life. Many people casually muttered, then shook their heads with a bitter smile and sighed. How could they relieve their worries? Only the mellow and strong wine. The rogue cultivators sitting around the bonfire rose and fell with the prelude of the zither, and the cool wine went straight down their throats. For a moment, the fragrance of the wine wafted everywhere, making the night full of bonfire and confused but clear, and worthy of eternal remembrance. Can't compare to a drunken life. Everyone knew that they could not be so free and easy, but tonight, they could get drunk. Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing looked at Yu Qianqiu with their mouths wide open, as if they did not recognize him. Was this still the boss from before? They had followed Yu Qianqiu for a period of time, and they knew that this boss was cruel and merciless, and he would kill at the slightest provocation. Moreover, he often used vulgar words like father and mother. It was hard to imagine that he could say such words with deep meaning. Moreover, looking at his elegance and the romantic way he played the zither, it was quite scary. Are we hallucinating? Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing looked at each other in disbelief. Yan Lan and the other girls' eyes were full of little stars, and they were full of splendor. They all bent their knees and rested their chins on their hands, staring at him with their blurred eyes. This man could really make women fall for him. His eyes under the green veil, although they were moving, they were as calm as before. But now, they were rippling, as if a small stone had been thrown into a pool of stagnant water, and it made people's hearts fluctuate, and it was difficult to calm down. Fang Ming suddenly came to his senses, and he stared at Yu Qianqiu with an unpredictable expression. Yu Qianqiu, who was playing the zither, also gave him a disdainful look. That's right, Yu Qianqiu was indeed looking down on him. How dare you pretend to be elegant in front of me? Elegant is bullsh*t, it's only for people who have nothing better to do. Who has ever seen someone who can't even fill his stomach pretending to be elegant? Elegant, you son of a b*tch, I can do whatever I want, and I've already stopped playing. Today, I'll let you see what it means to pretend to be elegant. Playing the zither, singing, and reciting poems, haven't you seen it before? This is called being overflowing with talent. Yu Qianqiu had deliberately played the zither before, and it wasn't just on a whim. Because everyone had already listened to a few songs, it was as if they had eaten too much delicious food, and now they were being served another delicious dish. If everyone wanted to taste the authentic taste, they would need a cup of plain water to wash away the residue on their taste buds, so that they wouldn't taste mixed. As for Yu Chincho's violent and random flicking, it was like a cup of tasteless plain water, completely washing away the lingering aftertaste in everyone's minds. After doing this, he began to show off proudly. He snatched this romantic night that belonged to Fong Ming into his own hands. While everyone was still sighing, they heard Yu Qianqiu reciting sonorously with the zither, riding on a sword to traverse heaven and earth, white bones fly like startled birds. The world is like a tide, and people are like water, but how many people return to the martial world? He added a slight sigh at the end, feeling a little sad about parting. The world is like a tide, and people are like water, but how many people return to the martial world? The rogue cultivators repeated it over and over again. Thinking back to when they first entered the cultivation world, everyone was still simple, and everyone had a few good friends, but who could survive? Even if they were still alive, who could still maintain that innocence? Deceiving each other to save their own lives, how many people returned to the martial world? Suddenly, someone stood up, threw the wine jar in his hand into the distance, and roared under the night sky. Cultivation world, you son of a bitch. That person gradually closed his eyes, and 2 streaks of tears slid down his beard, glowing under the light of the bonfire. This person was none other than the mid-stage nascent soul cultivator, Tian Yi. Perhaps he was thinking of his relatives and friends who no longer existed. The eyes of the 2 people beside him were also red, and they didn't say anything. They only knew how to pour the wine into their mouths. Next to the mountain pavilion, under the illumination of the incandescent lamp, behind the green gauze curtain, her red lips moved slightly, and an almost inaudible voice came out, riding on a sword to traverse heaven and earth, white bones fly like startled birds. The world is like a tide, and people are like water, but how many people return to the martial world? It seemed to be the first time this mysterious woman spoke. Her voice was mellow, like silver beads falling on a plate, crisp and pleasant to the ear. Unfortunately, the cultivation of the people below could not hear it. Only the old man behind her heard it. The one-armed old man slowly turned his head to look at Yu Qianqiu, and his calm eyes were a little dim, as if he was peeling away the night sky and looking at the distant past. A burst of wild and carefree laughter suddenly sounded under the night sky, and the bonfires suddenly flickered. Everyone was startled and looked over, and it was Yu Qianqiu laughing with his head facing the sky. The sound of the zither also became carefree and leisurely, and his 10 fingers were as bright as a blooming lotus, freely moving on the strings. The carefree and leisurely sound of the zither seemed to be warning everyone that since the past was unbearable to look back on, why not just let it go and laugh it off? The sound of the zither suddenly surged, and everyone's emotions fluctuated along with it. Suddenly, they heard Yu Qianqiu sing loudly, the ocean laughs, the surging tides on both sides, floating and sinking with the waves, remembering the present. The heavens laughs, the tides of the world, only God knows who wins and who loses. The rivers and mountains laugh, the misty rain is far away, the waves wash away the mortal world, how many do you know in the secular world? The cool breeze laughs, actually provoking loneliness, the heroic spirit is still there in the evening. La la la, la la la, haha. The song surged in the wilderness. Although it was night, the moon was bright, and the stars were sparse, but everyone's state of mind was instantly brought into another world. Under the bright sky, laughing alone at the ups and downs of the ocean, laughing at the vicissitudes of life like floating clouds, fighting for fame and wealth like passing clouds. How many people in the cultivation world live in fear and anxiety? How can it be as carefree as watching the sunset with a wisp of cool breeze? Yu Qianqiu's 10 fingers, the unrestrained singing, and the wild and hearty laughter dazzled Yan Lan and the other girls, and they couldn't help but fall into a trance. Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing were dumbfounded, and they really suspected that their boss was possessed by something unclean. Inside the pavilion, the one-armed old man's cold eyes gradually melted. Beside the pavilion, the blue muslin on the bridle fluttered without any wind. The pair of eyes inside stared at Yu Qianqiu, who was indulging himself. Her soft red lips moved slightly, and she murmured to herself, "The rivers and mountains laugh, the misty rain is far away." Is this a song composed by Yu Qianqiu? The common people laugh, no longer lonely, the heroic spirit is still there. As Yu Qianqiu sang, he couldn't help himself, and he gradually got into the mood. He seemed to be crazily singing to his heart's content. His wild and unrestrained manner really stirred people's hearts. Not to mention the others, they all swayed their upper bodies along with the song, and their flying swords clanked again. Together with the music, they sang along with Yu Qianqiu, the ocean laughs, the surging tides on both sides, floating and sinking with the waves, remembering the present. This song was both heroic and catchy, suitable for these men to vent their emotions. After being led to sing a few times, they all sang very well. Under the night sky, beside the piles of bonfires, the fragrance of wine mixed with the wild singing drifted in the wilderness. The veiled woman beside the pavilion raised her flute and gently placed it next to her lips. Chapter 540. Woo woo, the flute sounded again. It floated in the night sky, but it was not as lonely as it was the first time. The melodious sound of the flute was intertwined with the music of the zither. The lingering sound of the wild and gentle accompaniment immediately enhanced the gentleness and heroism of the song. It vividly displayed the charm of laughing mountains and rivers, drifting in the misty rain. The night wind seemed to be stirred up as it blew towards them, fluttering their clothes and making the bonfire flicker. The music of the zither and the flute was perfect, and it was a rare song to be heard in the world. Yan Lan and the other girls' hair danced in the wind, but they still stared at Yu Qianqiu, as if the lingering sound of the flute was also produced by the strings of the zither under his fingers. They didn't think that it was someone else who was playing the flute, because the flute's insertion point was just right. Those who were immersed in it felt that the music was even more beautiful and emotional. However, Yu Qianqiu noticed it. He kept playing the zither with his fingers to cooperate with the people who were singing loudly. He turned his head and looked at the veiled girl who was playing the flute beside the pavilion. The night wind came at the right time, wrapping around the mysterious girl's graceful figure. The green veil covering her face was blown up. Although her face was not exposed, half of her smooth and round forehead was already revealed. Yu Qianqiu stared at her, but he didn't know that the eyes under the green veil were also looking at him. Fingers plucking the strings and lips playing the flute, they cooperated so well. It was as if they had a telepathic connection, and their hearts were connected to each other. Everything was understood without words. A few strands of affection were quietly brewing in their eyes. Fang Ming was probably the only one among the rogue cultivators who wasn't immersed in it. He was slightly absent-minded, but he immediately woke up when he heard the flute. Now that he saw that the mysterious girl was playing the flute together with Niu Yud, he would be lying if he said he wasn't jealous. But what could he do about it? He could only keep it in his heart. Fang Ming's eyes fell on the four people who were singing loudly. He was hesitant, but then a trace of determination flashed across his eyes. With light footsteps, he slowly retreated to the periphery. He did not dare to move too much, wanting to leave before the crowd came back to their senses. It wasn't that he didn't want to call his four brothers to go with him, but he was afraid that it would alarm the others. If that happened, he wouldn't be able to escape at all. This was because he had given up the last chance that Niu Yud had given him. It wasn't like he was the one who started the practice of the cultivation world, abandoning their peers to save their own lives. However, he had left a little too late. If he had left while Yu Qianqiu was still immersed in playing and singing, he might have really let him escape. But now that Yu Qianqiu was awake, with his cultivation, how could Fang Ming escape from under his nose? Yu Qianqiu glanced out of the corner of his eyes and caught sight of Fang Ming gradually retreating. His eyes narrowed and a cold smile appeared on his lips. Although he had done a lot of despicable things, he had never done something like abandoning his brothers. Ha 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 ha. The sound of the zither rang out violently, startling the people who were singing loudly. They woke up with a start and looked at Yu Qianqiu. The gentle sound of the flute also stopped. Niu Yud stood up and threw the zither into his storage bag. He stared at a direction and said in a low voice, "Fang Ming, where do you think you're going?" Fang Ming stopped in his tracks and slowly turned around. He said nonchalantly, "Niu Yud, what do you mean by that? Do I have to tell you where I want to go? This is the ghost village, not your home. No matter how powerful you are, it's not up to you to make decisions here." Everyone's eyes focused on him. They were not idiots. Based on what had happened before, they naturally guessed that Fang Ming wanted to escape. His four brothers stared at him in silence, their expressions were very complicated. "I don't make decisions about other things, and I'm too lazy to make decisions. But your life." Yu Qianqiu raised his hand and pointed at him. He said indifferently, "I gave you one last chance, but you didn't want it. The moment I played this song, your life no longer belonged to you." Fang Ming naturally wouldn't sit and wait for death. Even ants wanted to live, let alone humans. His chest heaved up and down as he said, "Niu Yud, who can prove that the song you're singing is definitely composed by Yu Qianqiu?" Everyone understood what he meant, but they could also tell that he was being shameless. At the very least, they all believed that the song was composed by Yu Qianqiu. "I've long guessed that you're not only a liar but also a scoundrel," Yu Qianqiu said expressionlessly, "but I, Niu Yud, not only like to win people over with my virtue, I also like to be a ruthless judge. People like you deserve to die. I sentence you to death. What do you want?" Fang Ming was shocked. He originally thought that Niu Yud would have some misgivings in the ghost manner, so he was prepared to use his mouth. But looking at Niu Yud's expression, it seemed like he wanted to use force. Thus, he moved towards the mountain-leaning pavilion and said, "This is the ghost manor, it's not your turn to mess around." He looked at the one-armed old man for help. He also knew that Niu Yud's cultivation was higher than his, so he couldn't escape. He could only place his hope on the one-armed old man guarding the ghost manor. "Humph." Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. His body moved with a whoosh. He slid across the short grass on the ground, bypassing the campfires and the crowd, and directly approached Fang Ming. Amidst the clamor of the crowd, Fang Ming turned pale with fright and released a flying sword. He jumped on it and flew towards the mountain-leaning pavilion. His only chance of survival was there, so where else could he run to? But how could his nascent soul stage's speed be faster than Yu Qianqiu's? In an instant, the sound of something breaking through the air was getting closer. Fang Ming was scared out of his wits as he cried out in fear, "Senior, save me! Senior, save me! Young lady, save me!" His cry stopped abruptly. Yu Qianqiu leaped into the air and slapped his palm behind him. Fang Ming's body emitted a cloud of white smoke, which was quickly absorbed into Yu Qianqiu's palm. Immediately after, Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and unleashed a gust of astral wind. With a pu sound, Fang Ming instantly turned into dust. All the rogue cultivators were so shocked that they couldn't speak. They didn't even see what happened. Just 2 palms. 2 palms were enough to turn a nascent soul stage cultivator's bones into dust. Not even a piece of him could be seen. What kind of spell was this? It was too terrifying. Everyone didn't see it, but the veiled woman and the one-armed old man saw it clearly. Fang Ming was clearly turned into a dried-up skeleton by Niu Yud's palm, and then turned into dust by another palm. Absorbing Star's great technique. The veiled woman's delicate body slightly trembled. Her red lips under the azure veil murmured, it really is him. If the first sentence was heard by Yu Qianqiu, he would definitely be very surprised. Although it wasn't the first time he used the absorbing star's great technique, the number of people who knew about it could be counted on one hand. At least, no woman knew about it. After the one-armed old man clearly saw the power of this palm, his pupils rapidly shrank. There was no doubt in his eyes that he was shocked. After Fang Ming died, the flying sword under his feet still rushed towards the leaning mountain pavilion. The one-armed old man teleported in front of the veiled woman and conveniently grabbed the flying sword. Teleportation. Yu Qianqiu stared deeply at the one-armed old man. He had no intention of colliding with these two unknown people. His body turned in the air and immediately rushed towards Fang Ming's four brothers. After the four of them witnessed Fang Ming's tragic death, they were stunned. Suddenly, they realized that the person was rushing towards them. They were so scared that they immediately jumped up and ran. However, just as the four of them jumped up, they discovered that they were already surrounded by a qi dynamic. Yu Qianqiu flew backward in the air and slammed his palm toward the four people below. Four streams of white smoke rushed into his palm with a whooshing sound. Since he had already made his move, he didn't mind carrying the crime of killing the innocent. He wanted to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Everyone raised their heads and saw the four sounds of the palm. Suddenly, they heard a rushing sound that pierced through the air. He turned around and saw that the one-armed old man in the leaning mountain pavilion had made a move. Fang Ming's flying sword left his hand, leaving behind a magnificent silver light. It was accompanied by the faint sound of wind and thunder as it shot toward Yu Qianqiu, who was in midair. A strong wind followed the flying sword, and wherever it went, the bonfire would be extinguished. The people below felt their faces hurt from the strong wind. From the looks of it, the two experts were about to fight. No one dared to sit still. It wouldn't be fun if they got caught in the crossfire. They scattered like birds and beasts. They didn't even have time to hide. Even if they wanted to watch the show, they had to stay far away. Yu Qianqiu had just finished off the four people with one palm strike when he saw the flying sword coming towards him. In an instant, it was right in front of him. When the flying sword was still a few meters away, the strong wind had already hit him. He almost couldn't stand still in the air. He was shocked. This old man's cultivation was so high. Without another word, he leaped into the air again. Activating the metal art, he slapped the flying sword that had just brushed past him. Bang! The flying sword that was wrapped in the strong wind could no longer withstand the pressure. It exploded into a cloud of silver dust and flew everywhere. The bonfire below was extinguished by the wind and the four dried corpses turned into dust on the spot. Under the green veil, the black eyebrows slightly furrowed. It was understandable that Yu Qianqiu killed Fang Ming, but he didn't even let the four people go. She couldn't stand it anymore. She had been merciful all her life and hated killing the innocent. The one-armed old man's eyes flickered when he saw that his flying sword had been reduced to dust by Yu Qianqiu's palm. A fearless battle intent gradually overflowed from his body as he stared at Yu Qianqiu. The ghost manner didn't allow people to cause trouble. However, Fang Ming had offended someone he shouldn't have, so he didn't stop Niu Yud from killing Fang Ming. However, after Niu Yud killed Fang Ming, he turned around and killed four people. He simply didn't respect the ghost manor's guardian at all. Since he broke the rules here, he naturally had to teach him a lesson. However, he didn't expect Niu Yud to be able to shatter the flying sword he released with one palm strike. Moreover, it was shattered. This cultivation was quite frightening. He was confident that he could also easily shatter a normal flying sword with one palm strike. However, it was impossible for him to shatter a flying sword into dust. He now suspected that Niu Yud was a soul formation stage expert who was hiding his identity and purposely came to cause trouble. This was because even he couldn't see through Niu Yud's cultivation. One could only imagine Nyo Yud's cultivation. For a moment, his battle intent soared. However, just as he slowly moved half a step, he suddenly heard a soft sigh. The voice transmitted, "Forget it. This person's background isn't simple. He also has a deep relationship with Nongju. Let him go." "Miss, do you know this person?" The one-armed old man was startled. He transmitted his voice back, "Who is he?" Chapter 541. "If I'm not wrong, he's Yu Qianqiu." The mysterious woman transmitted her voice. "He's Yu Qianqiu. How can he have such a high cultivation?" However, his ruthless style of doing things is similar to that fella in the legends. The one-armed old man said in disbelief, "Yu Qianqiu has been the person that the loose cultivators talked about the most during this period of time. To think that he dared to come here under such circumstances. He's quite bold. What's real and what's fake? I wonder which one is the real one," the mysterious woman muttered. "Miss, what did you say?" the one-armed elder asked in surprise. He didn't understand what she meant. She had just said that this person was Yu Qianqiu. Why couldn't she tell the real one from the fake one now? Yu Qianqiu hovered in the air and narrowed his eyes at the one-armed elder. He was prepared to fight. What made him wary was that he didn't know how high this mysterious elder's cultivation was. When the other party casually swung out his sword, there was a faint sound of wind and thunder. This was something he had never seen before, even when fighting against cultivators at the late tribulation stage. Could this old fellow be at the soul formation stage? Yu Qianqiu was slightly alarmed. He secretly locked onto Utopia with his divine sense. If he couldn't do it, he would leave. What surprised him was that after the one-armed elder attacked, he only looked at him deeply before turning and retreating to the side. As for the mysterious veiled woman, she leisurely rose into the air like Chang-Yi flying to the moon. When she rose into the air, the veil on her head tilted slightly. Yu Qianqiu could clearly sense that the woman was looking at him. Following that, a green figure disappeared into the night sky. What was this woman's background? And what was the relationship between the one-armed elder and them? Yu Qianqiu couldn't figure it out. In the pavilion, the one-armed elder was drinking alone under the incandescent lamp. He was holding the wine jar that Yu Qianqiu had given him. It was as if nothing had happened. Damn it! If I had known earlier, I would have poisoned the wine and let you drink slowly. Yu Qianqiu gnashed his teeth in hatred. He thought to himself, "Old man, don't be so smug. This wine isn't that tasty." Floating in the air, he transmitted his voice to Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing, "Go back." His figure immediately shot into the ghost manor. Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing glanced at each other. Previously, Boss had said that he was in the core formation stage, but later on, it was shown that his cultivation level was far higher than that. The fact that he could fly in the air was proof enough. Now, he simply used the voice transmission technique, which could only be done by cultivators at the early stage of the crossing calamity stage. The two of them were a little excited because with the protection of such an expert, ordinary people in the cultivation world wouldn't dare to touch them in the future. This was equivalent to a big backer. The two of them did not dare to hesitate and quickly chased after him on their swords. Yan Lan and the other girls nodded and followed him. The rogue cultivators in the surroundings looked at each other. They never expected that someone would dare to make a move in the ghost manor. Someone asked, "Who knows the two rogue cultivators following Nyo Yud?" "I think I've seen them somewhere before. The taller one is called Fu Chun, and the shorter one is called Qin Jiaxing. They are just small fries in the foundation building stage." TSK. What kind of dogsh *T luck did these two fellows run into? They actually managed to find such a powerful backer. Another person replied. Everyone who was listening revealed an envious expression. They were very, very envious, not just envious. Although the identity of a cultivator in a famous sect had many benefits, and everyone was eager to join it. However, the founders of those famous sects were almost all rogue cultivators. Moreover, they were talented rogue cultivators. There was no other reason. Most of the cultivators who came from sects followed the cultivation methods of their sects step by step. Within the framework drawn by their ancestors, very few could surpass their ancestors. Although the life of a rogue cultivator was hard and tiring, those talented rogue cultivators were different. They all relied on their extremely high talent to walk a path that belonged to them. Only then could they establish their own sects and compete with the cultivators in the world. Among the top 10 cultivators in the world, which one of them wasn't a rogue cultivator? Among the rogue cultivators, they had never heard of someone named Nyo Yud. However, judging from his powerful skills and various situations today, he might also be a talented rogue cultivator. To be able to follow such a person, once he established his own sect, the person who followed him would definitely have an extraordinary status in the sect. How could those rogue cultivators who had attached themselves to famous sects and clans compare to them? That was why everyone envied Fu Chen and Qin Jiaxing. If they could befriend each other now, they might have a way out in the future. What surprised Yu Qianqiu was that the ruthless magistrate that he casually mentioned became Nyo Yud's nickname. Moreover, because of his fight with the one-armed old man, it didn't take long for the news to spread throughout the cultivation world. Returning to the small courtyard with 6 rooms, Yu Qianqiu sent the 6 girls away and called Fu Chen and Qin Jiaxing to his room. Seeing that he was serious, the 2 of them couldn't help but look at each other. They didn't know why their boss was looking for them. Yu Qianqiu took out 2 storage bags and threw them to the 2 of them. The 2 of them caught the bags and looked at each other. Then, they immediately injected their divine senses into the bags. If they didn't look, they wouldn't know. Once they saw it, they were shocked. Their eyes widened and they couldn't speak. There were so many spirit stones in the bags. For them, it was indeed a lot. They had never seen so many spirit stones in their lives. The 2 of them looked at Yu Qianqiu in confusion. They didn't know why he gave them so many spirit stones. There are 2 million top-grade spirit stones in each storage bag. It's enough for you to use. Yu Qianqiu smiled. For us? The 2 of them asked almost at the same time. Don't worry. Yu Qianqiu took out 2 purple, true restriction-breaking pills, and threw them to the 2 of them. It's your luck that you met me. Today, I'll help you break through to the early stage of tribulation passing. The 2 of them were dumbfounded. They thought they had heard wrong. Cultivation was about progressing step by step. The 2 of them were only in the middle stage of foundation establishment. How could they break through to the early stage of tribulation passing? Don't doubt me. Yu Qianqiu pointed at the purple spirit pills in their hands and said, the spirit pills in your hands are called restriction-breaking pills. They were made according to a recipe passed down from ancient times. Because the spirit herbs needed to make them are extremely difficult to gather, they have never appeared in the cultivation world. That's why very few people know about them. Although the 2 of them didn't have high cultivation levels, when they saw the halo on the spirit pills, they were a bit confused. Just by looking at the quality of the spirit pills, it was obvious that they were made by a top-notch alchemist. A normal alchemist would have a hard time making spirit pills with a halo. Fu Chen held it in her hands and said excitedly, Boss, do you mean that this restriction-breaking pill can increase a person's cultivation level? Qin Jiaxing smelled the fragrance of the spirit pills obsessively. Take the spirit pills, catalyze the medicinal properties, and then absorb the spiritual energy inside the spirit stones. When the time comes, you will know if I'm telling the truth. Yu Qianqiu raised his hand and said, Give it a try. Yes, yes. The 2 of them nodded. They were so excited that they didn't know what to say. Without hesitation, they stuffed the spirit pills into their mouths and sat down cross-legged to regulate their breathing. The two of them didn't have the slightest doubt because they felt that their boss had no reason to harm them. Moreover, with their status, neither of them was worth 2 million high-grade spirit stones. Spending 4 million high-grade spirit stones to harm insignificant people like them would be more likely to be crazy. With their boss's cultivation level, it would be easy for him to kill them. There was no need to go through so much trouble. Not long after, the two of them started to turn red. Hot air came out of their mouths and noses. They couldn't help but tremble. They looked like they were in pain. Yu Qianqiu said in a low voice, "Hurry up and absorb the spirit stones." The two of them trembled and quickly took out the spirit stones from their storage pouches to absorb the spirit stones. One after another. Not long after, the painful expression on their faces became comfortable. At the same time, there was a hint of surprise, as if they enjoyed this feeling. 2 hours later, the two of them opened their eyes one after another. They looked at each other and jumped up. Qin Jiaxing stammered, I broke through to the late stage of foundation establishment. Fu Chun was also excited, me too. Calm down, what will make you excited is yet to come. Yu Qianqiu sat on a chair and said disapprovingly. He placed 2 piles of spirit pills on the side table. In each pile were 7 purple limit-breaking pills and 3 colorful spirit pills with the halo of a rainbow-colored pill. The latter was the 7 treasures pill made from the rainbow-colored Lingji. It was the best spirit pill for breaking through bottlenecks. From foundation establishment to core formation, nascent soul, and tribulation passing stage, there are 3 bottlenecks. These 3 rainbow-colored spirit pills are rare spirit pills for breaking through bottlenecks. You can take 1 for each bottleneck. Yu Qianqiu smiled and knocked on the table. Each of you take 1 pile. It should help you break through to the early stage of tribulation passing stage. Damn it. I have spirit stones and spirit pills, don't let me down. The two of them were so excited that they didn't know what to say. Happiness came too suddenly. They never thought such a good thing could happen. They thought they were dreaming. Fu Chun took a deep breath and bowed. Fu Chun will obey your orders from now on. Then she calmly took the 10 spirit pills that belonged to her. Qin Jiaxing stared blankly for a moment before he quickly bowed and saluted. Qin Jiaxing will definitely listen to boss's instructions from now on. Then he quickly took the pills on the tea table. Yu Qianqiu smiled and didn't say anything. He raised his hand and gestured for them to continue. The two of them looked at each other and stood side by side. They bowed to him again and continued to take the spirit pills to absorb the spirit qi. After the two of them closed their eyes, Yu Qianqiu's face became expressionless, and his fingers tapped on the surface of the coffee table. The purple restriction-breaking pill that the two of them had consumed was the same as the one that most of the members of Utopia had consumed. It could rapidly raise one's cultivation to the early stage of tribulation passing. The only flaw of this pill was that although it could help speed up cultivation, the person who took this pill would only be able to reach the late stage of tribulation passing stage. There was almost no hope of breaking through to the soul formation stage. The white restriction-breaking pill could avoid this flaw, but there was another flaw. Every time they took one, they would be stiff and unable to move for a month. If the two of them took the white restriction-breaking pill, they would need at least 8 months to break through to the early stage of tribulation passing stage. What he lacked the most right now was time. It was urgent. Chapter 542. Jumping out of the Chinese cultivation world was a hasty decision. At first, he was worried that he had made the wrong move. But now, he could confidently tell himself that this trip was worth it. He learned many things he didn't know. It also gave him a very serious sense of crisis. Looking at the problem from this perspective, he had a lot of feelings about the overall situation of the cultivation world. Previously, when he made a ruckus in the closed Chinese cultivation world, he was indeed a frog at the bottom of a well. The outside world was very vast and spectacular. There were indeed many experts in the cultivation world. There were many things that the Chinese cultivation world couldn't come into contact with. Combining the situation of the Chinese cultivation world and the countries here, he could now say with certainty that the Chinese cultivation world was definitely not a match for the combined forces of the various countries. Not to mention the soul formation experts, just the final stage tribulation passing experts alone were countless. The various countries didn't even use their true strength in the war against the Chinese cultivation world. Why was it like this? Yu Qianqiu felt a lingering fear just thinking about it. It was obvious that they were waiting for something, for Bai Changchun to go to the Eastern Holy Land. Yu Qianqiu now truly understood Master Bai Changchun's position in the cultivation world. As long as Bai Changchun was still in the cultivation world, the entire world wouldn't be chaotic. Perhaps Bai Changchun only needed a glance to scare all the experts in the world into trembling with fear. No one would dare to move. In Baikong's cultivation was high, right? The World Commerce Association's power was great, right? He still kept a low profile, afraid of angering a certain someone. Even if he didn't say anything and just watched coldly from the demon ghost region. Whether it was this late-stage soul formation expert or that late-stage soul formation expert, who would dare to use the full strength of their country to attack the Chinese cultivation world. No one dared to step forward. That number one expert in the world definitely didn't blink when he killed people. His iron-blooded methods had already deterred the entire world. Who could make all the soul formation experts in the world obediently gather together with just one word? Thinking about it, it could only be Bai Changchun. Yu Qianqiu even suspected that the so-called East Sea War was just his master deliberately trying to scare those so-called experts. Because the rumors of the star bead appeared too suddenly, the experts from various countries were all restless. At that time, Bai Changchun went on a killing spree and killed more than 10 deity transformation stage experts in a row. Immediately, everyone was so frightened that they didn't dare to act blindly without thinking, and all of them became well-behaved. Just to prevent soul formation experts from interfering in the war. If it was before he came to the various countries, Yu Qianqiu might have believed this saying. But now, he didn't believe it. Did Bai Changchun not know the strength of each country? Even if the soul formation experts didn't intervene, the Chinese cultivation world wouldn't be a match for the combined forces of the various countries. Wouldn't the Battle of the East Sea be unnecessary? Bai Changchun shouldn't be such a boring person, right? Why didn't the other countries attack the Chinese cultivation world? They only sent people to test the waters. Clearly, Bai Changchun's threat in the East Sea was effective. Although he said that the other soul formation cultivators wouldn't intervene, he wouldn't intervene either. However, he had shown that he wanted to protect the Chinese cultivation world. Who would dare to bite the bullet and come? Wouldn't that be courting death? Yu Qianqiu now had a bold guess. The rumor about the star orb came so suddenly that Bai Changchun didn't seem to expect it. But he suddenly gathered all the soul formation experts in the world to threaten them, but he didn't invite the second strongest expert in the world, Wen Lanfeng. When he was about to leave the monster ghost region and there was no successor for the torture envoy, he left Wen Lanfeng behind. Could it be that the old man decided to let Wen Lanfeng inherit the position of the torture envoy of the monster ghost region? Thinking back to the last time at the Baiwan embassy in Dayang City, Nongzhu had told Wen Rui why Bai Changchun didn't invite Wen Lanfeng to the East Sea. However, Nongzhu hesitated and didn't explain it. It seemed that there was some hidden reason. Judging from this, the possibility was very high. In the cultivation world, apart from Bai Changchun, it seemed that only Wen Lanfeng could intimidate the heroes of the world. However, his sudden appearance seemed to have changed by Changchun's mind. He, who had never accepted disciples, accepted him as his disciple. Furthermore, he had already hinted that he would be the next torture enforcer. Did Bai Changchun think that his achievements in the future would be higher than Wen Lanfeng's? Even Yu Qianqiu didn't believe this reason. He was an expert at the late soul formation stage. He thought about it until his scalp went numb. He couldn't figure out what the old man wanted, so he simply stopped thinking about it. Maybe he was worrying too much. Master didn't have so many plans at all. Otherwise, he would have killed all the soul formation experts. But he was very sure of one thing. Master was determined to go to the Holy East Land. Once he left the cultivation world, all the countries would definitely join forces to attack the cultivation world of Huaxia. Not only the cultivation world, but the secular world would also experience a great calamity. A war to divide the interests of Huaxia was inevitable. At that time, the world would be in chaos. After understanding the general situation, Yu Qianqiu calculated that it would not be long before his master left for the Eastern Holy Land. He immediately felt that he was pressed for time. There was only 1 or 2 years left, which was nothing for the long life of a cultivator. But for him, it was really urgent. In 1 or 2 years, once the cultivation world of Huaxia was defeated. If he didn't have enough strength to operate in the cultivation world and support Shi Wenguang's army would be the first to bear the brunt. Although the cultivation world wouldn't directly intervene, if the armies of hundreds of countries joined forces, no matter how good Shi Wenguang was at fighting, it would be hard for him to deal with them. His years of hard work would go down the drain. Yu Qianqiu sat on the chair and smiled bitterly. To be honest, before leaving the cultivation world of Huaxia, he didn't care much about who won or lost. But now, for the sake of his own interests, he couldn't let the cultivation world of Huaxia defeat them. He had to help them even if he didn't want to. Regardless of what his master was thinking, he had to prepare for a rainy day and make preparations just in case. In the next 1 or 2 years, he had to weaken the strength of the countries as much as possible. Thinking of this, he took out a red spirit pill and played with it in his hand. When he first refined the pseudo-limit breaking pill, it was prepared for the Daluo sect. But now, it seemed that the Daluo sect was a force that couldn't be ignored in the cultivation world of Huaxia, so there was no hurry to deal with them. This pseudo-limit breaking pill might have to be used on someone else. As he pondered, he sat on the chair until the next day, when Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing forcefully increased their cultivation to the early stage of the tribulation passing stage. The two of them stood up excitedly. Roar! They couldn't help but let out 2 clear roars, causing the room to buzz. Under the grapevines outside, the 6 women were wondering why the 3 men were hiding in the room for an entire day. Could it be that they were gay? When they suddenly heard the 2 clear roars, their expressions changed. From the deafening roars, they could tell that the cultivation of the 2 people who made the sounds was much higher than theirs. When did other people enter the room? In the ghost manner, many wandering cultivators looked over. Yu Qianqiu leaned back on the chair and looked at the 2 of them with half-opened eyes. He smiled slightly. It was understandable how the 2 of them felt. Anyone who spent a day to break through from the foundation establishment stage to the tribulation passing stage would be overjoyed. They had seen many similar things in Utopia. Of course, it was a good thing, but what the 2 of them didn't know was that they basically had no chance of breaking through to the soul formation stage in this lifetime. He didn't know if the 2 of them would have other thoughts after they found out. Therefore, Yu Qianqiu didn't tell the 2 of them about the drawbacks of the purple limit-breaking pill. Yu Qianqiu knew that he might be a little unreasonable, but his way of thinking might be a little cruel to others. His reasoning was very simple. The 2 of them were wandering cultivators with mediocre aptitudes. If they hadn't met him, in this chaotic cultivation world, what chance would they have of increasing their cultivation to the early stage of the tribulation passing stage in this lifetime? The chance was probably 0. Not to mention cultivating to the soul formation stage. That's right, he wanted to use the two of them, so he took out a few million spirit stones to increase their cultivation to the tribulation passing stage. However, Yu Qianqiu thought that this was an opportunity for them. Others might not have this opportunity. Some things might make people unhappy if they were too clear about it. For their own good, his own good, and mine, it was better to hide it. He thought that this kind of concealment was rational and kind. How's the effect? Are there any adverse effects on your body? Check it carefully. Yu Qianqiu leaned his arm on the tea table, his head half propped up as he smiled. The two of them nodded and quickly checked their bodies. Apart from the damage caused by forcefully increasing their cultivation, they were fine. Boss, there's no problem. Fu Chun clenched her fists and said excitedly. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that such a day would come. Boss, there's no problem with me either. Qin Jiaxing kept rubbing his face with his palms. He was indescribably excited. Yu Qianqiu nodded and smiled as he looked at the two of them checking their cultivation. After a while, the two of them calmed down a little. Fu Chun brought the storage bag over respectfully and said, Boss, there's still about 800,000 high-grade spirit stones. Qin Jiaxing didn't dare to keep it to himself and brought it over respectfully. Yu Qianqiu sat up straight and waved his hand with a smile. I'm an early-stage tribulation passing cultivator now. I'm no longer a poor itinerant cultivator. How can I not have some money? Keep it for yourself. The two of them were a little embarrassed. Qin Jiaxing scratched his head and giggled. This was happiness. In the past, they were just poor itinerant cultivators. I still stand by my words. As long as you follow me sincerely, I guarantee that you'll have a good life. Yu Qianqiu stood up and patted their shoulders. Help me do things well. Good days are yet to come. The two of them didn't know what to say. They just kept nodding and giggling. After I made my move last night, I'm sure many itinerant cultivators will come to fawn over you. Yu Qianqiu walked around the two of them and said, if they find out that you're early-stage tribulation-passing cultivators, they'll be even more envious. You can tell everyone about the limit-breaking pill. Chapter 543. Awe. Both of them were shocked. Although their previous cultivation levels were low, they were still clear about one thing. If such a treasure was made public, it would probably cause great trouble. Boss, you have to think twice. Fu Chun cupped her hands and advised earnestly, this limit-breaking pill is really too magical. Once outsiders know about it, I'm afraid all the cultivators in the world will flock to snatch it. Just like that Yu Qianqiu, because of these two treasured sabers, ended up being chased and robbed by cultivators from various countries. That's right, that's right. Qin Jiaxing nodded repeatedly and said very sincerely, Boss, this kind of thing really can't be leaked. Such a precious treasure will really bring about a fatal disaster. I'm not afraid of the itch when I'm covered with lice. Yu Qianqiu smiled self-deprecatingly and waved his hand at the two who didn't understand, saying, just do as I say, nothing will happen. The two looked at each other and showed expressions of listening attentively. After all, they had just said that they would obey his orders. If they were to be long-winded, they would be suspected of being disobedient. Moreover, the two of them were now quite convinced of this boss. Who in the world could raise the cultivation level of a foundation establishment cultivator to the tribulation passing stage in one day? They didn't know whether others had this ability or not. In any case, they had never heard of it. Such a miraculous method, coupled with his powerful skills and mysterious origin, made the two of them fear and respect him. Yu Qianqiu was very satisfied with their performance and said slowly, if someone asks you about the improvement of your cultivation level, it's okay for you to disclose the limit-breaking pill. Just say that I'm going to make a lot of it, and on the day of the treasure basin gathering, I will sell it to the cultivators in the world. Of course, some things can't be said completely. What could be said and what could not be said, he carefully explained to the two of them. After figuring it out, the two of them looked at each other. They didn't know what the boss was going to do, but it wasn't good for them to ask, so they promised to do as he said. At this moment, the room suddenly darkened, and there was a faint sound of thunder in the sky outside. Yu Qianqiu's expression changed slightly. He glanced at the two of them and quickly opened the door and walked out. Yan Lan and the other girls were looking around the courtyard. When they saw Yu Qianqiu coming out, they all bowed and greeted him, Mr. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand at them and looked up into the sky. Dark clouds were rolling overhead, and there were lightning bolts intertwining in the sky. Lightning snakes flickered in and out of the dark clouds. This was especially true for the area above their heads, where the clouds were as black as ink and lightning snakes were flashing. The 6 girls looked at each other. They had seen this phenomenon many times in the Misty Rain Tower. Yan Lan said in surprise, "It's a tribulation cloud. Could it be that someone is going through a tribulation in this ghost manor?" When Qin Jiaxing and Fu Chun heard this, their expressions changed. Of course, they knew who was going to undergo the tribulation. The former asked fearfully, "Boss, what should we do?" The two of them had never experienced such a scene before, so they were more or less afraid. They couldn't help but ask their boss for help. It's not a big deal to go through the tribulation in the early stage. Yu Qianqiu had seen many people go through the tribulation in Utopia, so he was already used to it. There was indeed nothing to be afraid of in the early stage. Even if he was going through the tribulation himself, although he was struck by lightning and fainted, he could just sleep in a daze and muddle through it. It was nothing. Let's go into the mountain. It's big enough there. Yu Qianqiu flew towards the back of the mountain. The two of them didn't dare to hesitate and quickly followed him, seeing that Qin Jiaxing and Fu Chun could actually fly in the air, coupled with what the 3 of them said just now, the 6 girls were so shocked that their jaws dropped. After a while, Yan Xia stammered, "Could it be? Could it be that Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing are going through the tribulation? How? How is this possible?" It wasn't just the 6 of them. Many people in the ghost manor were also looking at the sky and wondering who was going through the tribulation. When they suddenly saw Qin Jiaxing and Fu Chun flying in the air, they all rubbed their eyes, thinking that they were seeing things. After asking the people around them, they realized that it was very likely to be true. How was this possible? Many people flew into the air, wanting to follow them to see what was going on. In the next few days, Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing, whose cultivations had risen to the early stage of tribulation passing, had a comfortable life. The two of them arrogantly scurried around the ghost manor, accepting the flattery of the loose cultivators. Although they were going around to complete the task given by their boss, the feeling of being flattered by everyone made the two of them feel a little complacent. They didn't know who they were anymore. Yu Qianqiu really couldn't stand it anymore. Their morals. Naturally, he had to pour some cold water on them to wake them up. He seriously warned the two of them. The two of them had only reached the early stage of tribulation passing, and their real strength was still far from the early stage of tribulation passing. If any powerful early stage nascent soul cultivator couldn't stand the sight of you, they would definitely kill you. Don't be too arrogant. Yu Qianqiu's words weren't alarmist words. How could a cultivator who had risen to the early stage of tribulation passing in a day compare to a cultivator who had cultivated for 100 years, or even hundreds of years? Not to mention the profoundness of their cultivation arts, just their actual combat strength alone was a world of difference. A slightly stronger early-stage nascent soul cultivator wouldn't have a problem killing them. The level of one's cultivation didn't necessarily determine one's strength. This wasn't just a saying, Yu Qianqiu understood this very well. Precisely because he understood this, the members in Utopia who had forcefully raised their cultivation were forced to continuously train with all their might. This was so that when they faced actual combat, they would be able to minimize the number of casualties to the greatest extent. After being reprimanded, the two of them knew that their boss wasn't lying. After their minds became clearer, they restrained themselves a lot. In these few days, the ruthless magistrate Nyo Yud would also walk around the ghost manor every day. At the same time, the cultivation world's butcher, Yu Qiancho, would often appear around the fog forest, the secret of entering and leaving the fog forest. As a result, many cultivators were attracted over. However, a butcher was a butcher, and those who were unlucky enough to encounter him rarely managed to escape alive. When a large number of people rushed over, everyone could only watch as he escaped into the fog forest. There was nothing they could do about him. Once everyone relaxed, this fellow became energetic again. Without anyone noticing, he would sneak out to commit crimes. He killed a few people here and there, causing those who suffered losses to want to pull out his tendons and skin him alive. However, this fellow was even more slippery than a loach, and it was very difficult to catch him. At the most, more than 50 late-stage tribulation transcendence experts trapped him in a valley. However, in the end, no one could figure out what was going on. Everyone searched everywhere, but they still couldn't find him. In the end, he still managed to slip away. Then, he turned around and appeared somewhere else. He charged into a group of nascent soul cultivators and slaughtered them, killing nearly 100 people in one go. When more than 50 late-stage tribulation transcendence experts rushed over to help, that fellow ran away again. The cultivators of the various countries were filled with hatred. They looked at the heavens speechlessly. They gritted their teeth so hard that they were about to shatter, and they almost burst into tears. So many experts couldn't catch an early-stage tribulation transcendence expert. Furthermore, he often appeared right under their noses. This group of people had lost all their face. Yu Qiancho's strategy was very effective in dealing with this group of people. To sum it up, the enemy was tired, would disturb, the enemy was strong, would retreat, the enemy chased, I would run. If anyone was careless, I would be ruthless. Just when Yu Qiancho was causing quite a stir among the various countries, a ruthless judge, Nyo Yud, suddenly appeared in the Jinshan country's ghost village. This person's appearance more or less stole the limelight from the butcher Yu Qiancho. The experts of various countries temporarily stopped dealing with Yu Qiancho and focused their attention here. Ordinary cultivators in the cultivation world didn't know who the one-armed old man of the ghost village was, but the higher-ups of the various countries knew. This Nyo Yud was actually able to shatter the one-armed old man's flying sword with one palm strike. Furthermore, he had shattered it into powder. It was truly unbelievable. When did such an expert appear in the cultivation world? What shocked them the most was that this Nyo Yud was actually able to forcibly raise the cultivation of 2 foundation establishment stage loose cultivators to the early stage of tribulation passing within a day. Many people had seen it with their own eyes. This was simply too inconceivable. Limit-breaking pill. Limit-breaking pill. Limit-breaking pill. What a distant word. It was so distant that people had almost forgotten about it. Legend had it that during the chaotic battles of ancient times, a capable person with special abilities had refined a very overbearing spirit pill in order to gain the upper hand in the battle. It could forcibly raise the cultivation of the cultivators under him to the tribulation passing stage in a short period of time. This was only a legend. As for what exactly was going on, no one knew. They had only vaguely heard that this spirit pill was called the limit-breaking pill. Nyo Yud could actually refine the limit-breaking pill. It was said that he could also refine it in large quantities and was even preparing to sell it at the cornucopia gathering in the future. This news was even more shocking than him shattering the one-armed old man's flying sword. Just think about it, which of the various countries' soul formation experts didn't have 1,000 or 800 cultivators under their command? Those with great powers even had tens of thousands of cultivators under their command. There were even some that had close to 100,000 cultivators under their command. For example, Yin Baikong's World Chamber of Commerce. The World Chamber of Commerce had more than 100,000 disciples. Although it was a mix of good and bad, and most of them had low cultivation. But what if they had the limit-breaking pill? 100,000 tribulation-passing experts, oh my god. Just thinking about it made people's blood boil. The headquarters of the World Chamber of Commerce, Cornucopia, God of Wealth Peak. On the God of Wealth Peak, the wind and clouds surged, causing people's clothes to flutter. At this time, the three people's emotions were the same, making it impossible for them to calm down. Yin Baikong, dressed in a black robe, stood tall on the peak of the mountain. No matter how strong the wind caused his robe to flutter, he didn't move an inch. His eyes were like an eagle's as he stared in the direction of the Golden Mountain country. However, under his slightly shriveled cheeks, one could clearly see his muscles twitching non-stop. It was obvious that his heart wasn't as calm as it looked. Sikong Ju and Jing Yuankong silently stood behind their master, limit-breaking pill. Sikong Ju's eyes flickered. As Yin Baikong's head disciple, he had followed his master for the longest time. At the same time, he was also his master's most trusted disciple. Some things were secrets between master and disciple. Sikong, is the news reliable? Yin Baikong asked without turning his head. Sikong Ju respectfully replied, "We have planted our spies in the Ghost Manor. They saw it with their own eyes, so it shouldn't be wrong." Yin Baikong slightly nodded his head with his back facing the two. His voice was still calm as he said, "Sikong, let's put the other matters aside for now. Pick enough capable people and personally go to the Golden Mountain country." Chapter 544. Yes. Sikong Ju answered decisively. He understood that if the limit-breaking pill was really that miraculous, it was too important to world commerce. Yin Baikong gradually turned around. He first glanced at Jing Yuankong, then at Sikong Ju, and said, "The limit-breaking pill is extremely important. Logically speaking, I should personally make a trip, but I have to give face to the one-armed geezer, so it's not convenient for me to interfere. Not to mention Wen Lanfeng." Feeling that he had gone off topic, he paused and continued, "It would be best if you can invite that Niu Yu to our world commerce. If not, see if you can buy the limit-breaking pills recipe. It doesn't matter if the price is high, as long as it's not too outrageous. In short, before we can guarantee the interests of world commerce, Niu Yud and the limit-breaking pills recipe cannot fall into the hands of others. It's too big of a threat to our world commerce. If necessary, we'd rather destroy it." Disciple understands. Sikong Ju bowed slightly and frowned. What if the lords of other countries interfere? Yin Baikong put his hands behind his back and said, "You don't have to worry about this. One-armed old devil still has Lu Yanqing behind him. The lords of other countries won't run to Ghost Manor without any qualms. Not to mention Wen Lanfeng has already started meeting guests. I'm afraid everyone will have to go to Baiwan Nation first. I'll think of a way to hold them back and give you enough time. Disciple will do his best." Sikong Ju bowed. "As for what to do, you have to know your limits. Try not to clash with one-armed old devil." Taking 10,000 steps back, didn't Niu Yud say he's going to sell the limit-breaking pill at the Treasure Basin gathering? If we can stop the others from succeeding before then, when the cornucopia meeting is held, with the financial resources of our world commerce, we will also be the biggest winner, Yin Baikong said confidently. Yes. Sikong Ju also became confident. With his master holding back the other experts, he had nothing to worry about. Yuan Kong. Your eldest senior brother and I aren't here, so I'll leave the house to you. Yin Baikong called out. Disciple will definitely guard the house well and not let master and senior brother have any worries. Jing Yuankong replied. After giving some instructions, Yin Baikong quickly left in the direction of Baiwan Nation and disappeared into the distance. The two brothers also went down the mountain. One continued with his own work, while the other gathered people and prepared to go to the Jinshan Kingdom. In fact, it was not only the World Chamber of Commerce that took action. All the other countries were like cats that smelled blood, sending their most capable disciples and subordinates to the Golden Mountain country. For a time, the Yu Qianqiu incident in the Jinshan Kingdom had not been settled yet, and now Niu Yud had stirred up a storm. One wave after another. Those cultivators who could only watch the show and could not get involved couldn't help but sigh. The current cultivation world was really in troubled times. Previously, the cornucopia had been pushed back from the 8th major event to the 9th major event. Now, it seemed that it had been pushed back by the limit-breaking pill incident, and the cornucopia could only be demoted to 10th again. Baiwan Nation's sacred land, in the back room of the sacred palace, when Lanfeng slowly walked out of a complex sound transmission array filled with spirit stones. When he was on Obedient Island, he had obtained the coordinates of old ancestor Nan Ming's message formation. Just now, he had informed Obedient Island about the situation. The person he was talking to was Nongzhu, who had nothing better to do. He could imagine the scene of old ancestor Nan Ming shouting at the top of his lungs when he found out. Outside the curved arched door of the back room, when Rui greeted Wen Lanfeng, who had a slight smile on his face. He found that since the last time the old ancestor returned from the demon domain, there would be a smile on his face from time to time. The melancholy that always hung on his face had lightened a lot, as if he had let go of something that could not be resolved in his heart. What puzzled him the most was that although the old ancestor was defeated by Bai Changchun, he often maintained contact with the demon domain. Old ancestor, according to your instructions, the guests who have been waiting for a long time have been arranged to the bank of the heart-cleansing lake, Wen Rui reported as he walked slowly with Wen Lanfeng. Under the bright and hazy light, Wen Lanfeng lost some of his melancholy and appeared somewhat graceful and luxurious. As he walked along the white jade corridor, he asked, "How many people have come?" "Nearly 100 soul formation experts from various countries have come, and more are coming," Wen Rui replied. "Oh. Only nearly 100. Wen Lanfeng asked faintly, "Has the news that I want to meet the guests spread?" Wen Rui smiled and said, "The news has been released." "Old ancestor, do you plan to meet them today?" Wen Lanfeng said disapprovingly, "Wait for another day. Wait for more people. I don't have time to accompany them all day long." "Ah, this." Wen Rui smiled bitterly, "Old ancestor, this is not good. Some of the people who came early have been waiting for more than 10 days. Some people are already cursing us, saying that they have never seen us treat guests like this. Some people even said that if you don't show up, they will go back." "Humph." When Lanfeng stopped, turned around and said indifferently, "Go tell them that although my place is not as good as the demon domain's Obedient Island, it is not a place where anyone can come and go as they please. If they have the guts, they can try. When the time comes, I will personally visit them." The majesty of the world's second expert was revealed in an instant. Then he snorted as he walked, "Looks like I have to learn from Bai Changchun. Sometimes, being too polite to others is not necessarily a good thing. Obedient Island is still peaceful and free. Who would dare to disturb it?" "Ah." When Rui's expression twitched. Although it was a good thing that the old ancestor's fighting spirit had reappeared, he would offend many people if he told them the exact words. After all, Baiwan Nation was not as aloof as the demon domain. Everyone had frequent dealings with each other. "Is there any news from the Misty Forest?" Wen Lanfeng asked again. Wen Rui quickly caught up and replied, "Everyone's attention is now on the Ghost Manor. Over at the Misty Forest, Yu Qianqiu appeared a few times, but seeing that no one was paying attention to him, he hid in the misty forest and didn't appear again. Ha! What is this guy trying to do? Wen Lanfeng shook his head and smiled. When the news that there was a treasure left by the demon monarch of 10,000 swords in the misty forest, he was also tempted. Baiwan Nation was also gathering people to prepare for the treasure. But when he heard the news that it was Yu Qianqiu who leaked it, he immediately stopped the operation. Combined with Nongzhu's evaluation of Yu Qianqiu, he instinctively felt that there was something fishy about it. So he got in touch with Nongzhu on Obedient Island. When Nongzhu heard about it, she said suspiciously, based on that kid's character, even a piece of trash is divided into several storage bags. How could he easily tell others about such a precious treasure? Wen Lanfeng, are you sure about this news? Wait, even if it's true, don't make a fuss. Maybe it's that kid's up to something again. By the way, don't worry about him for now. Let's keep in touch and see what he's up to. Was there such a thing? Wen Lanfeng was speechless. In the following days, he jumped out of the scene and observed the changes from the perspective of an outsider. Sure enough, he found that none of the forces involved in this matter got any benefits. It seemed that they all suffered some losses. He kinda believed that it was Yu Qianqiu who was playing tricks on them. There are no soul formation experts in the Mist Forest who are involved, right? This was what Wen Lanfeng was worried about. He was worried that Yu Qianqiu would suffer losses and it would be hard to explain to that person on Obedient Island. When Ruan knew that the ancestor had been watching Yu Qianqiu silently, even though he didn't hear it clearly from the ancestor during this period of time, he was quite protective of Yu Qianqiu. He smiled and said, there were soul formation experts who rushed to the Mist Forest before, but they were startled by that hero. They were afraid of following in the footsteps of Hua Zhongming and Pu Taidong, so they rushed back to make arrangements. Even if they want to take action, I'm afraid they have to wait until they see you. The two had already walked out of the holy hall and were bathed in the sunshine outside. When Lanfeng stopped quietly and said slowly, go to the heart-cleansing lake and tell them that I'll see them tomorrow. Obedient Island in the Demon Domain, on the edge of the 1,000-mile lake. Nongzhu was holding a long and slender golden sword. She flicked it with her fingers and sighed constantly. After a long time, he turned around and pointed at the ancestor of Nanming helplessly and said, You. You're also known as the #1 blacksmith in the cultivation world. The materials that old Bai collected with great difficulty to refine an upper-grade spiritual treasure were actually refined into a middle-grade spiritual treasure by you. I don't even know what to say about you. The Nanming old ancestor, who had a strong body and a tall physique, hung his head and said somewhat innocently, I was very confident this time and was about to succeed. At the crucial moment, who knew that Qinghua would play tricks on us? The intensity of the fire fluctuated. It's like seeing a ghost. He said to Bai Changchun, who was standing quietly by the lake, with great shame, Bai Changchun, I'm really sorry. I didn't want this to happen. He didn't know how many times he had said this apology. Nongzhu rolled his eyes and knocked on his shoulder with his sword. He said with a, hey, old Bai is going to the East Holy Land. Don't you know what a good sword means to him? What's the use of just apologizing? I say. Don't hide the treasures of your Xian Island anymore. Spill them all out and see if you can refine another one. The ancestor of Nanming's face twitched painfully. He pushed away the sword that Nongzhu put on his neck and gritted his teeth and said, all right, I'll go back and take a look. I'll try to refine one before you go to the East Holy Land. I hope it can help you. Ha! That's right. Nongzhu smiled wickedly. Shamelessly, she wrapped her arms around Nanming ancestor's neck and asked, do you want me to go with you? The ancestor of Nanming pushed him away in disgust. Just as he was about to scold him, he heard Bai Changchun say indifferently, Nanming, I appreciate your kindness. There's no need to trouble yourself. You don't have to feel guilty. I've seen the process of refining. It's not your fault. It's that Qinghua that suddenly had a problem. I lost my life. This is heaven's will. Nongzhu, who was making faces, and the disgusted ancestor of Nanming were stunned at the same time. Nongzhu said in shock, Old Bai, what do you mean? Don't worry. It's okay. Nanming was willing to do it. No one forced him. Nanming, tell me, did you do it willingly? As he spoke, he kicked the ancestor of Nanming's butt and let him speak for himself. Chapter 545. Ancestor Nanming glared at him with extreme disgust. This guy's habit of getting physical was really annoying. Unfortunately, he had made a mistake, so he didn't want to argue with him. He turned around and said, Bai Changchun, try again. Bai Changchun turned around and said indifferently, Thank you for your kindness, but there's really no need. I can't break your rules. Otherwise, when I go to the East Holy Land, you'll be in endless trouble. Of course not. Nongzhu jumped between the two and patted her chest. If we don't say it, who will know that Nanming broke the rules? Nongzhu, don't say any more. Rules are rules. If I break them once, there will be a second time. The rules of Xian Island can't be broken on my head. I can't afford to owe you this favor, Bai Changchun said. What kind of stupid rules are those? Nongzhu shouted at ancestor Nanming unreasonably. Nanming was speechless. He understood that Nongzhu was anxious about Bai Changchun's matter, so she spoke without thinking. Nongzhu, don't make things difficult for him, Bai Changchun frowned. Nongzhu stared at ancestor Nanming angrily. The latter smiled helplessly and cupped his hands at Bai Changchun. Bai Changchun, I'm really sorry. I'll take my leave first. He felt ashamed to stay any longer. Bai Changchun smiled faintly. He knew that ancestor Nanming would feel uncomfortable if he stayed. He raised his hand and thanked, Sorry for the trouble, I won't see you out. I wouldn't dare. Nanming shook his head in shame. Then, he let out a clear whistle. After a while, his red dragon flapped its wings and flew over from afar. An illusory figure landed on the wyvern's back. Nanming, who was riding on the wyvern, was about to leave. Suddenly, he raised his hand and slapped his forehead, as if he had thought of something. Bai Changchun, the cornucopia is about to be held. Maybe you can buy the materials you need. If you have all the materials, tell Nongzhu to bring this to me. I'll come immediately. Nanming threw out a dark shadow. Nongzhu caught it and took a look. It turned out to be the black tusk that was taken from the gate of the underworld to invite him. Bai Changchun was startled. How can I do that? I have another item here. I can't break your rules. Nanming waved his hand and smiled. My rules didn't say that I can't return someone's things. Bai Changchun, don't make me leave Obedient Island with guilt again. She still owed him a favor. Bai Changchun wasn't a long-winded person. He raised his hand to thank her for the second time and said, I won't be sending you off. Farewell, Senior Nanming. On the other side, Zi and Hibiscus bowed together, while Miss Mu followed a few steps behind. Farewell. Nanming returned the greeting and waved at the three women. The wyvern under his feet let out a dragon roar, then flapped its wings and quickly flew away, turning into a black dot and disappearing. Nongzhu weighed the thing in his hand and said with satisfaction, This old man knows his place. He tossed it into his storage pouch and shook the golden sword in his hand. Since you have no use for this, why don't you leave it with me for now? I'll keep it safe for you. As soon as he finished speaking, a strong force pulled the sword away from his hand. The sword was floating in front of Bai Changchun, and Bai Changchun was using 2 fingers to draw something on the sword. Nongzhu saw the word hibiscus engraved on the sword. Bai Changchun waved his sleeve and the golden sword flew out with a whoosh. It floated straight in front of Hibiscus, who was about to turn around, emitting a faint golden light. The 3 women looked at each other, then at the 2 seniors by the lake, not knowing what they meant. Ze suddenly exclaimed, "There are words on it." "Hibiscus, ah! Hibiscus, your name is written on it." "Ah!" Ze immediately realized that it was a spiritual treasure given to Hibiscus by Senior Bai. She licked her lips with her bright red tongue and pushed Hibiscus with a face full of envy. "Hurry up and thank Senior Bai. There are words personally engraved by Senior Bai on it. It's a gift for you." Miss Mu was also full of envy. A spiritual treasure with words personally engraved by Lord Torture Envoy. "Ah! Is it a gift for me?" Hibiscus was at a loss of what to do. She looked at Bai Changchun weakly, only to see Bai Changchun slightly nodding at her. "Thank you, master." Hibiscus hurriedly knelt down and kowtowed. After staying here for a while, she had already followed Yu Qianqiu and called Bai Changchun master under Nongzhu's instruction and Bai Changchun's tacit consent. Hibiscus was a little confused and didn't know what it meant. She just thought that she should call Bai Changchun master after following Yu Qianqiu. Nongzhu secretly sighed that this girl had a good life and followed a good man. Although that guy was not a good person, he really treated her well. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent her to Shantian Island. In the end, she didn't know what kind of virtue this girl had accumulated in her previous life, but she actually fell for Bai Changchun. Bai Changchun, who had always been cold, suddenly asked Nongzhu one day, "Yu Qianqiu is my disciple, and Hibiscus is my disciple's wife. Shouldn't this girl also call me master like Yu Qianqiu? Isn't it a little inappropriate to call me senior?" At that time, Nongzhu was completely dumbfounded as if she was struck by lightning. When she came to her senses, she kept digging her ears with her fingers, thinking that she had heard wrongly. She hurriedly asked, "Old Bai, what did you say?" "Say it again, I didn't hear it clearly." "Humph." Bai Changchun swung his hand and left with a bad look on his face. Ancestor Nanming, who was still present at that time, shook his head and said, "That girl Hibiscus is so lucky." "Nanming, what did old Bai say just now?" Nongzhu still couldn't believe it and pulled Ancestor Nanming to ask again. After Ancestor Nanming repeated Bai Changchun's words, Nongzhu was dumbfounded again. She had known Bai Changchun for so many years. This old guy was unyielding and would never give in to anyone or anything. Only others begged him, and he had never begged anyone or anything. When did she hear him say such words? Although it was a casual sentence, the meaning behind it was obvious. He wanted Hibiscus to call him master like Yu Qianqiu. However, with his proud and aloof character, it was impossible for him to take the initiative to ask Hibiscus to call him master. If Nongzhu wasn't stupid, she would know what to do. However, Nongzhu just wanted him to say it again. How could Bai Changchun say it again? Naturally, he swung his sleeves and left with a bad look. "Paw!" Nongzhu, who came to her senses, slapped herself hard on the face. Ancestor Nanming chuckled and said, "Slap, slap hard. Slap another one." It was originally a teasing remark, but who knew that Nongzhu would slap another one hard, which made Ancestor Nanming dumbfounded. When did this guy become so obedient? Ancestor Nanming curiously stretched his head over and said suspiciously, "Slap another one for me to see." F***CKU. Nongzhu kicked him to the ground, turned around and left. This made Ancestor Nanming inexplicably jump up and curse. Crazy. After a while, Nongzhu dragged the frightened Hibiscus back. After finding Bai Changchun, she pointed to the ground and said to Hibiscus, "Kneel down. From today on, you will follow Yu Qianqiu and call him master." Bai Changchun suppressed his anger and wanted to explode at Nongzhu. With his status in the cultivation world, did he need to force anyone to call him master? As long as he opened his mouth, there would be a long line of people begging him. He thought it was something important. So it was this. Hibiscus was stunned. She thought it was right to follow Yu Qianqiu and call him master. It was what she should do. She immediately knelt down and weakly called, "Master." Bai Changchun, who was filled with rage, was called master. Whether it was anger, it all disappeared without a trace. After being stunned for a while, he raised his hand and said, "Get up." From then on, Hibiscus called Bai Changchun master. Nongzhu still could not understand why this girl looked like an idiot and timid. How was she better than her daughter? She was not as pretty as her daughter. She had recommended her daughter Ze to old man Bai to be his disciple several times, but the old man just did not like her. She was so angry. When she asked about Hibiscus's background, she explained it clearly. She was originally the illegitimate daughter of an elder of Fuxian Island and was an ugly girl who was bullied. Later, Yu Qianqiu used the Rui pill to help her restore her appearance. Speaking of the Rui pill, Nongzhu was so angry at Yu Qianqiu. Last time in Dayang City, this guy said he only had one and Ze snatched it. She insisted that he pay for it. After asking Ze, she found out that this guy actually gave it to her. He did not snatch it at all. He was lying to her, and there was more than one pill. Good boy, wait and see. Hand it over obediently and we'll talk later. Putting this matter aside, even if Hibiscus was from Fuxian Island, the #1 sect in China's cultivation world, she was not as good as the daughter of the island master of Purple Bamboo Forest in the South Sea, the famous soul formation expert Nongzhu. After thinking about it, she could only think that Hibiscus was lucky. Perhaps old man Bai was doing this out of respect for his precious disciple. No matter what, this master was very, very precious. In the cultivation world, it was comparable to any powerful magic treasure. As long as Hibiscus said that her master was Bai Changchun, she could do whatever she wanted in the cultivation world. As long as Bai Changchun was alive, no one would dare to touch her. Sigh. This girl's value doubled in the blink of an eye after she called him a master. At this moment, Hibiscus stood up and reached out her hands to grab the sword with sincerity and excitement. No matter how immature she was, she knew that this sword was a spiritual treasure. She had only heard of it in legends. She did not expect to get one today. Moreover, it was originally the sword of the world's #1 expert, but now it was given to her. Before she could grab it, the sword lost its strength and gently fell into her hands. Hibiscus held it and bowed to Bai Changchun sincerely. Suddenly, her hands became light. Ze, who was at the side, shouted loudly as she snatched the treasured sword into her hands. She caressed it lovingly. Then, she hugged Hibiscus and said, "Hibiscus, I'm so jealous of you." Humph. On the other side, when Nongzhu saw her daughter's pitiful look, she felt a surge of jealousy in her heart. With a livid face, she turned to look at Bai Changchun and said, "Old Bai, what do you mean? With our relationship, you can't favor one and discriminate against the other. Do you have any more treasures on Shantian Island? Find one, write something on it and give it to Ze." Chapter 546. He made it sound easy, but he made it sound like treasures were like weeds that could be plucked from the roots on Shantian Island. Bai Changchun glanced at him coldly. This guy would go crazy from time to time. Bai Changchun ignored him and turned to walk to the center of the island. Nongzhu blocked in front of him and said in a deep voice, Ze is your junior after all. It's not too much to ask you to give her a treasure as a gift. Bai Changchun stared at him, feeling angry and funny at the same time. Even if he wanted to give her a gift, he had never seen someone so thick-skinned as to ask for a gift. He said slowly, I don't have any treasure here. Nongzhu was stunned. He believed what Bai Changchun said. He dared to say anything, but he would never lie. So he said gloomily, how about I find a treasure and you write something in front of Ze and then give it to her? I'm not as bored as you. Bai Changchun shouted in a low voice, get out of my way, or don't blame me for being rude. I won't let you go even if you beat me to death. Wait, I seem to have a sword at the level of spiritual treasure. Nongzhu checked his storage bag. He was fearless because he knew that Bai Changchun would not go too far even if he wanted to teach him a lesson. Bai Changchun's face instantly turned cold. He hated it when someone took advantage of his weakness. He made a grabbing gesture with his right palm, and there was a faint chi of chi surrounding it. Obviously, he wanted to teach Nongzhu a lesson. At this moment, Ze, who was hugging Furong, suddenly said with a stern expression, Furong, how about I become Yu Qianqiu's woman like you? In that case, I can also call Senior Bai master. Perhaps Senior Bai will also give me something. Lady Mu was stunned, and so was Furong. The two girls looked at her serious face and did not know if she was joking or serious. Ze hugged Furong's arm and shook it, what's wrong? Furong, are you not willing? Furong was stunned and shook her head. She replied with difficulty, no, as long as Yu Qianqiu is willing, I will listen to him. Her words were so powerful that Bai Changchun's anger disappeared completely. His expression was indescribable. He did not look at the girls but stared at Nongzhu. Time flew by in the blink of an eye, but none of them knew how precious it was. Nongzhu, who was engrossed in checking the storage bag, was stunned. In an instant, she froze there motionlessly. After a long time, it was as if he had woken up from a deep slumber for millions of years. He slowly raised his head and met Bai Changchun's gaze. His eyes were a little unfocused, as if he had been badly frightened. Then, he slowly turned his head to look at the girls. A mocking expression slowly appeared on Bai Changchun's face. This expression had not appeared on his face for more than 2,000 years. He raised his finger and said, Nongzhu, did you hear that? If you want me to give you a treasure with inscriptions, it's very simple. Purple dress, just do as you say. With their cultivation, it would be easy for them to not let the women hear their conversation. The three women looked at each other, each with their own thoughts, and did not pay attention to the movements of the two senior experts. After Ze heard Furong's reply, her face suddenly flushed red. She was stunned for a while before she suddenly smiled and said, I was just joking with you. I won't be that swindler's woman. Furong, did I scare you? As she said this, she stuffed the sword back into Furong's hand. Even though she said this, the guilty conscience in her eyes was noticed even by Furong, let alone the others. Furong opened her mouth, but did not know what to say. Suddenly, an angry roar resounded, you didn't scare the others, but you scared me. Nongzhu teleported over and stared at Ze with bright eyes. She said, Ze, tell me, were the words you said just now the truth? Ze's eyes darted around, not daring to meet her master's eyes. She pouted and said, I was just joking. She replied casually, but in her heart, Nongzhu said, it's over, it's over. He was a veteran in love affairs, and had dealt with countless women. What kind of women had he not seen? His daughter's words and actions had completely betrayed her inner thoughts. Nongzhu felt a little dizzy. Of all people, why did it have to be that guy with an extremely bad character, who made her gnash her teeth the most? Heavens! Is this your retribution for me in this life? For the sake of my daughter, I have already cultivated myself, why did you? Nongju silently raised her head and asked the heavens speechlessly, but the heavens were also speechless. Nongju, what kind of treasure do you want me to inscribe on? If worse comes to worst, I will go all out and personally go to Xianxian Island to look for Nan Ming. Bai Changchun said with a serious face, adding insult to injury. Ziyi's pretty face turned even redder. She understood the unspoken meaning in Elder Bai's words. After looking at her daughter's face, Nongju really felt dizzy, so dizzy that the world was spinning. He held his forehead with one hand and shouted angrily, "Bai Changchun, shut up." Ha! For the first time in Obedient Island, the cruelest torture envoy in the history of the demon domain laughed heartily. With a flash, he disappeared into the door of the big house at the center of the island. "Master, what's wrong?" Ziyi asked guiltily, worried that her master was angered by her. "Nothing." Nongju waved her hand and said nothing more. He knew that it was useless to forcefully stop this kind of thing. It probably had no effect on that brat at all, and it would hurt his daughter's heart instead. He had hurt too many women's hearts in his life, but he didn't want to hurt his daughter. Retribution. I lost, so miserably. Nongju murmured to herself with a pale face. She walked towards the big house in a daze, her back hunched and her steps staggered. Mr. Nongju, the famous free cultivator who was known as the most handsome man in the cultivation world, seemed to have aged 1,000 years in an instant. He had long noticed that his daughter had an unusual feeling for Yu Qianqiu, but his daughter had always been his darling, so how could he let that bastard take her away so easily? Therefore, Nongju had been holding back his anger, and from time to time, he wanted to beat up Yu Qianqiu to vent his anger. He remembered that when Yu Qianqiu first came to the purple bamboo forest in the South Sea, he had warned Yu Qianqiu not to have any improper thoughts about his daughter. It seemed that that brat really did that, and he could see that Yu Qianqiu did not have any ideas about his daughter. However, the god of fate favored that brat very much, and helped that brat to put the shackles of fate on his daughter that she could not break free from. Yu Qianqiu, who was thousands of miles away, did not do anything to him, but hit his soft spot. Nongju, who had been secretly holding back his anger, was completely defeated. That was why he said, "I lost, so miserably." The feeling of losing the most precious thing made him feel lost. Ziyi looked at her master's back blankly, wondering if she had done something wrong. Nongju staggered into the big house, and collapsed on the ground. She seemed to have no strength left in her body, and lay there with her limbs open. Bai Changchun, who was sitting cross-legged, stared at her and frowned. He knew that Nongju loved Ziyi, and he could understand her feelings, but he did not say anything. There was silence between them. After a long time, Nongju sighed, "Old Bai, you saw it." "What?" "Ziyi and Yu Qianqiu." "I never worry about that thing, because it is useless to worry about it. The more I worry about it, the worse it will be." Bai Changchun shook his head slightly, and then sighed, "Nongju, let go. Ziyi is not a child. You keep her by your side, which is not love. She needs her own life, good or bad, bitter or spicy. It is something she must experience in her life, and she needs to taste it by herself. You filter all the taste, and only give her sweet food. You should know that if she eats too much sweet food, she will get tired of it, and it will also become bitter." Nongju stared at the beam of the house, and murmured, "I don't want to restrict her, I just want her to have a good ending. The world is big, and everything is reproduced, but they all end up in the same place. Only an eternity without eternity can be eternal, so what kind of ending is a good ending?" Bai Changchun asked, "Do you think that Yu Qianqiu's ending is not good for Ziyi?" "Of course you think so, Yu Qianqiu is your disciple. Of course you think he is good." Nongju rolled his eyes, lying there. With a few words of consolation, he felt a little better. He regained some of his vitality, unlike before when he was like a piece of rotten wood. Let's not talk about this, you won't listen to me. Help me do something, Bai Changchun said. Nongzhu, lying on the ground, tilted his head and asked, what is it? Find Yu Qianqiu, and ask him what happened in the mist forest. Bai Changchun thought for a while, and then said, ask him why he can go in and out of the mist forest at will. Nongzhu's eyes brightened, and he quickly climbed up, patted his forehead, and said, why didn't I think of this? If the treasure of the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch is really in the mist forest, it doesn't matter if the refining failed. With the convenience of Yu Qianqiu entering and exiting the mist forest at will, he should be able to get the sword of the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch. Maybe he has already succeeded. TSK. Did you think of this a long time ago? No wonder you didn't have any reaction when the refining failed. Nonsense. Bai Changchun snorted, the mist forest is related to the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch, but it can't have the treasure of the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch. Don't let your imagination run wild. Nongzhu raised his hand to pinch his chin, and looked at Bai Changchun suspiciously. How do you know the mist forest is related to the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch? How do you know that the treasure of the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch can't be in the mist forest? Did the former torturer tell you something? Don't be too curious. Some things have nothing to do with you, and I won't tell you, so don't ask. Bai Changchun refused directly. Nongzhu was so curious that she scratched her head and ears, and the unhappiness just now had long disappeared. She tentatively asked, is there a big secret in this? A big secret involving the Thousand Swords Demon Monarch? Tell me a little. Chapter 547. Bai Changchun glanced at him indifferently and said, the Demon King of Swords created the Demon King of Demons. Some things about him have been passed down from generation to generation by the torture envoys and will not be disclosed to outsiders. You had the chance to know, but you gave it up. Even so, I can give you another chance. If you swear to take over as the next torturer, I'll tell you without you even asking. Do you really want to know? Nongzhu, who was dawdling and acting shamelessly, was stunned. His face twitched for a while before he shrank back and said embarrassedly, I just asked casually. It's fine if you don't want to tell me, but you don't have to be so serious. Don't you want to know? Bai Changchun snorted and said, I trust the judgment of the former torture envoy. Nongzhu waved his hand and said, forget it. That old thing makes me nervous. You'd better tell your precious disciple. It was not worth it for him to put on the shackles of the Demon King of Demons for a secret that had nothing to do with him. He lived a carefree life now. He could eat, sleep, leave, and stay as he pleased. The world was big, and he could do whatever he wanted. Go early and come back early. Bai Changchun said coldly. He was urging him to hurry up and stop dawdling. Humph. Nongzhu got up unhappily and said while pulling his clothes, it's my bad luck to meet you. You always order me around. I just want to ask you a question. You can go by yourself. Why do you always ask me to pass the message? Although he said so, he also knew that if Bai Changchun showed up in all the countries to look for someone, it would be a little too noisy. This guy didn't show up easily. Once he did, he would shock the world and make all the practitioners panic. Those who didn't know would think that something big was going to happen again. There was no other way. He was so famous. Walking to the door, Nongzhu suddenly turned around and asked, according to the news from Wanlanfeng recently, Yu Qianqiu is making more and more trouble. Aren't you afraid that he won't be able to clean up the mess? There's nothing bad about it. The bigger the trouble, the better. If it was too quiet, it would create trouble for him. Let him get used to it, then I can leave in peace, Bai Changchun said calmly. Ah. Nongju was dumbfounded. She really wanted to call him a lunatic. It turned out that this old thing really let his apprentice do whatever she wanted. For the growth of his apprentice, he used the whole cultivation world as a whetstone. His mood had fluctuated too much today, and he didn't want to be agitated anymore. Nongju flashed outside and went to the sound transmission formation left by ancestor Nan Ming. After sending a message to Wenlan Feng, she quickly flew away. In the sacred land of Baiwan Nation, ancient trees covered the sky densely. In the depths of the jungle, the surface of the heart-cleansing lake was as calm as a mirror, reflecting the blue sky and white clouds. From time to time, various kinds of birds would fly past. There were many pavilions and buildings by the lake, and the morning mist curled up like smoke. It was like a fairyland on earth. This was the place where the literati of Baiwan Kingdom used to entertain their guests. Occasionally, there would be people walking back and forth between the pavilions. There were also cultivators in groups of 3 to 5 who were chatting together. From time to time, people would descend from the sky. Most of them rejected the disciples sent by the Wen family to attract the guests and joined the crowd of cultivators to chat. At this moment, the sound of someone flying through the air could be heard. From the sound, it didn't sound like an ordinary expert. Everyone looked up. As soon as they looked up, they saw an old man in a black robe stopping in midair. He laughed and said, "Brother Changsho, I didn't expect you to be one step ahead of me." The person was Yin Bai Kong. Many people greeted him, but many turned their heads away in disgust. Below, there were 4 people standing on a stand that extended to the lake. Compared to other places, this stand was bigger, but there were fewer people. There was no other reason than that the 4 people below were the top 10 experts in the cultivation world. They were all experts in the late soul formation stage. Cultivators had their own circles, and it was difficult for those who were not of a high enough level to gather together. Just like in the secular world, the top figures' levels were too high, and they didn't have a common language with those of a lower level. Small figures couldn't afford to play with them. "Yin Bai Kong, you're late." The gray-robed old man leaning against the railing glanced at him. This person was the lord of the Eastern Nation, the palace master of the Heavenly Peak Cloud Palace, Hu Changsho. Yin Bai Kong landed beside him with a string of shadows. Just as he was about to speak, someone laughed and said, "Yin Bai Kong, you look good." Yin Bai Kong turned around and glanced at the 3 people standing a few meters away. He cupped his fists indifferently and said, "Pei Fong, O Yangda, Qi Zhujuan, long time no see." The 3 of them looked at each other and smiled. It was a smile that harbored evil intentions. A fat man in blue slowly moved towards Yin Bai Kong. He was plump and round, and his face was covered in grease. He looked like a rich landlord. This person was the lord of the Thousand Joy Nation, a late soul formation stage expert, Pei Fong. He nodded solemnly and said, "It has been a long time. I heard that your grandson was kidnapped, so I wanted to meet you and tell you to restrain your grief. Who knew that you were really willing to take out 300 million high-grade spirit stones to ransom him? This Pei is very surprised." As expected of the boss behind the World Chamber of Commerce, "You're very rich." The 2 of them stood together. They were about the same height, but one was fat and the other was thin. The difference in size was too great. Yin Bai Kong narrowed his eyes and sneered, "Fatty Pei, you were lucky to escape last time. Do you want to fight again today?" "What do you mean by lucky to escape?" "Last time, it was your fatty grandpa who had an urgent matter and left first." "What? You want to fight again here?" Pei Fong looked around and the fat on his face shook. He clicked his tongue and said, "I don't mind, I can accompany you any time. But this place is beautiful and it's Wen Lanfeng's territory. I'm afraid you don't have the guts." "Fatty Pei, you're not afraid, do you think I am?" If you dare come, I'll accept. Yin Bai Kong retorted. At this time, the lords of the surrounding countries were watching. Even if they were afraid of Wenlan Feng, they couldn't lose in a verbal argument in public. Otherwise, they would lose face. Oh Yangda and Qi Jujuan looked at each other and slowly walked to the left and right of Pei Fang. The former said indifferently, "It's better to have fun together than to have fun alone. If you two don't mind, let us join in." That's right. Qi Jujuan, who was wearing a golden robe, agreed. He was the Lord of Nine Thais, and the former was the Lord of Great Liao. Both of them were late soul formation experts, and they were in the same group as Pei Fang. Their words were pleasant to the ear, and they seemed to be joining in the fun. But the surrounding people could see that their intention was obvious. They wanted to beat Yin Bai Kong up with 3 people. Yin Bai Kong laughed and turned around. "Brother Changsho, it's rare to have a fun time." His tone was meaningful. Hu Changsho, who was facing the heart-cleansing lake with his hands behind his back, said without turning his head, "Since it's a fun time, the more the merrier. Count me in." Chapter 548. Needless to say, Hu Changsho was definitely on Yin Bai Kong's side. Hee hee. Interesting. Many lords from various countries smiled lasciviously, rubbing their hands in anticipation. 5 late-stage spirit-severing experts actually wanted to fight 3 against 2 in Wenlan Feng's territory. It was definitely exciting and not to be missed. This trip was definitely worth it. Of the top 10 experts in the cultivation world, Bai Changchun and Wenlan Feng, ranked first and second, had always relied on their profound cultivation to act independently and never did things like forming a gang. The remaining 8 people were not so confident. Perhaps it was because they felt insecure, perhaps it was for common interests, or perhaps it was to resist other powerful forces. They gathered in groups of 2s and 3s. Bing Qingzi, Yin Bai Kong, and Hu Changsho were jackals of the same tribe. O Yangda, Qi Jujuan, and Pei Fang were entangled together. There were also 2 others who thought their cultivation was higher than these 6. The 2 felt that they were evenly matched, so they reluctantly grouped together. These 2 might have been overconfident, thinking that no one in the world could beat them together. Back in the East Sea, they were not convinced by Bai Changchun. At the same time, they seemed to have taken some wrong medicine and joined forces with great confidence to challenge the world's #1 expert. In the end, Bai Changchun gave the 2 of them a quick death. They no longer had the chance to be alive and kicking. They were dead. From then on, 2 of the top 10 experts were gone. Therefore, a large group of mid-stage spirit-severing experts became the candidates for the 2 vacant spots. No one was convinced by each other and felt that they had the ability to be ranked among the top 10 experts. Sometimes, this kind of false reputation could also drive people crazy. For this false reputation, there would be endless friction. Once these 5 people started fighting, 1 or 2 of the top 10 experts would die. Wouldn't that mean that there would be 1 or 2 vacancies? It would be best if they could infuriate Wenlan Feng and kill 1 or 2 of them. That would be even better. Everyone looked at the 5 of them expectantly. Hu Changsho silently stood beside Yin Bai Kong. The 2 stood calmly and a faintly discernible killing intent began to surge. The 3 people opposite them looked at each other and revealed a cold smile. 3 against 2, this kind of opportunity was rare. The fat on Pei Fang's face trembled as he said, "Should we wait for Bing Qingzi to come? Otherwise, he will say that we are bullying with numbers." "Wait for Bing Qingzi. Aren't you afraid of biting your own tongue?" Yin Bai Kong sneered, "I heard that you, Fatty Pei, have escaped death more than 10 times in the hands of Bing Qingzi. Aren't you afraid that you won't have another chance to escape this time?" Hu Changsho said indifferently, "It escaped from me 5 times. Yin Bai Kong stared blankly for a moment before replying, it's the same. I have 5 times with me. The two of them stared blankly for a moment before looking at Pei Fong with disdain. Whispers immediately rang out in the surroundings. Normally, it was impossible for them to fight against soul formation final stage experts. Who would have thought that there would be such a powerful person among them? Pei Fong glanced around proudly. He did not feel embarrassed at all. Instead, he had an expression that said, "What do you guys know? Don't talk nonsense. If you have the ability, don't say it." Qi Zhoujuan snorted coldly and shot into the air. Pei Fong held his belly and laughed. Then, he and Ouyangda flashed into the air at the same time. The three of them looked down. A thick and forceful aura filled the air. Yin Baikong squinted his eyes and stared at the sky. He smiled evilly and said, "Brother Changsho, I'll leave the damn fatty to you. Don't let him escape again. I'll handle the other two." Hu Changsho replied with action. He teleported into the air and stood opposite Pei Fong expressionlessly. Yin Baikong followed closely behind. The 5 of them were filled with killing intent. The intense killing intent frightened the birds and beasts in the forest and caused them to flee. The people below were also on standby. This battle could be considered as the pinnacle battle of the cultivation world. A battle between soul formation final stage experts was not child's play. Even the slightest ripple could cause a lot of trouble. The spectators had to be prepared to dodge at any time. Bing Qingzi, who was supposed to be part of the battle, was currently in a desolate mountain not far from Baiwan Nation's sacred land. The small hillside was overgrown with weeds. On a protruding bluestone, Bing Qingzi, whose hair and beard were all white, stood quietly. A light breeze blew against his thin white robe. Apart from his face, his entire body seemed to be completely white. Man Hu and his brothers were obediently standing at the side. Yan Zhuixing quickly sized up the old man in front of him. This was the first time he had seen a legendary soul formation stage expert. Furthermore, it was an expert at the late-stage soul formation stage. Even if he had a heart of stone, he could not help but feel slightly nervous. Bing Qingzi, who was looking down from above, was also sizing up this genius who cultivated the demonic book. Although he looked calm on the surface, he was sighing in his heart. Countless people had died. Finally, there was hope to break a curse that had bound many people for generations. His cultivation was not low among the top 10 experts. However, he had wasted too much energy in order to find someone who could form a demonic body and cultivate the demonic book. As a result, Yin Baikong, whose cultivation was slightly lower than his, had taught 2 soul formation stage disciples. However, he did not have a single disciple under his name. His cultivation was not low, but he was the weakest among the top 10 experts. Even many soul formation middle stage experts were stronger than him. It was not easy for him to find the time to teach 7 disciples who were at the tribulation final stage. He treated each of them as if they were his own children. However, one of them died because of the demonic book's inheritor. It really made his heart ache. Activating the demonic art, he calmed down his slightly nervous state of mind. Yan Zhuixing bowed and said, "Junior Yan Zhuixing greets Senior Bing. I have always been indebted to Senior's kindness, but I did not have the chance to meet you. It is my great fortune to be able to meet Senior today. No need to be so courteous." Bing Qingzi raised his hand and sighed, "I don't deserve it." Why did it sound like he was mocking someone? Yan Zhuixing was slightly startled and said, "Senior, do you have any opinions about me? If you do, you can say it directly. I will definitely follow your instructions and will not have any opinions." Bing Qingzi glanced at Man Hu. Obviously, his disciple did not tell the truth to Yan Zhuixing. He paused for a while and said, "This is for later. I will find an opportunity to tell you the truth. Man Hu has already told me your purpose of coming. Before he finished his words, he suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction of the One family's sacred ground. Seeing his solemn expression, the others did not know what had happened and followed his gaze. Looking left and right, they did not find anything. After a while, they felt that there was a slight abnormal fluctuation in the air, and then they saw flocks of birds flying over from afar. "Master, is there something wrong?" Man Who asked. "It's the breath of those old guys. What the hell are they doing? Are they going to fight in the One family's sacred ground?" Bing Qingzi frowned and quickly flew away without saying anything to them. For him, this distance was just a few blinks of an eye. In the sky above the heart-cleansing lake, when the situation was on the verge of breaking out, a flying sound was approaching rapidly. The spectators secretly clicked their tongues. Needless to say, the last person of the two groups of rivals had also arrived. Among the remaining 8 top experts in the cultivation world, only Bai Changchun and Wen Lanfeng were left. The rest were all here. Pei Fong and the other 2 people's faces changed slightly. They all understood that if it was really 3 against 3, they might still be a little weaker. Yin Baikong and Hu Changshou looked at each other. The former turned back and sneered, "Fatty Hu, aren't you waiting for Bing Qingzi?" "As you wish, Bing Qingzi is here." "I hope you can be tough today and don't run away with your tail between your legs. Your escaping skills are unparalleled in the world. I really can't catch up with you." Hu Changshou said indifferently. "One ran away, but there are still 2 left." "Good." As he spoke, a white shadow flashed by. Bing Qingzi, who was covered in snow from head to toe, suddenly appeared in the sky. Bing Qingzi glanced at them and said in a deep voice, "What's going on?" Yin Baikong looked at Pei Fong and said with a smile, "Bing Qingzi, you came at the right time. We didn't recruit anyone, but someone actually provoked us first. Fatty Pei specifically said that he was waiting for you to settle the score." "Settle the score with me?" Bing Qingzi was slightly startled and looked at Hu Changshou with an inquiring look. The latter said indifferently, "Yes." Everyone below heard it. Bing Qingzi stared at Pei Fong and said in a deep voice, "Fatty Pei, you stole my spirit beast from the snowy mountain last time. It's already good enough that I didn't settle the score with you, but you actually want to settle the score with me?" Pei Fong was speechless. Although he called out Bing Qingzi's name, he didn't mean to settle the score with him. Yin Baikong and Hu Changshou were obviously playing tricks on him. However, explaining now would make him seem afraid of trouble. He immediately said with his fat face shaking, "Bing Qingzi, don't accuse me wrongly. When did I go to the snowy mountain to steal your spirit beast? You think I can't recognize you just because you're wrapped in white?" Bing Qingzi snorted coldly, "My mysterious Yin palm doesn't feel good, does it?" Oh, Yangda and Qi Jujuan turned to look at Fatty. The latter frowned and said, "You went to steal from others again." The 2 of them had been implicated countless times because of this guy's stealing. Allying with this guy was really bad luck. The most depressing thing was that this guy liked to steal from experts, especially from the 3 of them. But then again, the more powerful an expert's item, the more valuable it was. There were only a few top experts in the cultivation world. He didn't dare to steal from those that were too powerful. "What are you talking about?" Pei Fong patted his chest and said excitedly, "Don't tell me you don't believe me, but believe them. TCH. With your figure, it's hard to mistake you." Yin Baikong glanced at his chubby figure and sneered, "You're a famous thief. It's not the first time you visited my God of Wealth peak. It's a disgrace to be on the same level as you among the top 10 experts." Pei Fong had a belly full of anger when he talked about stealing from the God of Wealth peak. The last time he snuck into the God of Wealth peak, he only stole a tightly sealed broken box and was discovered by Yin Baikong. He didn't know what kind of valuable treasure was hidden inside, but it provoked Ian Baikong to chase after him for a few days and nights, causing him to be covered in injuries and almost lose his life. In the end, he had no choice but to throw away the broken chest and escape. It was because of this that he took the initiative to provoke Ian Baikong. Thinking of the injuries that took a long time to heal, Pei Fong was enraged and shouted, "Ian Baikong, don't confuse right and wrong here. If you want to fight, then bring it on. Hee hee. Don't think of leaving here alive today." Ian Baikong sneered. He was eager to use this opportunity to get rid of one or two troublesome fellows. "Ian Baikong, I haven't seen you for many years. You're getting more and more arrogant. Do you think this is your world commerce? Do you think you can call the shots here?" A faint voice reverberated in the surroundings. Then, the voice became louder and louder. Although it was soft, it became somewhat deafening in the end. The calm surface of the heart-cleansing lake was shaken by the continuous sound, and it lost its calmness. The leaves of the surrounding trees were also shaking non-stop. Such a profound cultivation. Everyone was shocked. They looked around but couldn't find where the voice came from. Although they couldn't see who was speaking, they knew it was Wen Lanfeng from the voice. The expressions of the 6 late-stage soul formation cultivators changed. They weren't strangers to Wen Lanfeng. Just from this voice, they could tell that Wen Lanfeng's cultivation was far stronger than before. No wonder he dared to go to the demon domain to find Bai Changchun. In the ghost manor, Yu Qianqiu had already moved out of the small courtyard. He didn't move outside the ghost manor, but to the main courtyard of the ghost manor. Under Fu Chun and Qin Jiaxing's inquiry, the group of rogue cultivators who originally occupied the main courtyard happily gave up their territory. Since Senior Niu wanted to live here, no one dared to say anything. The ghost manor was no longer the world of rogue cultivators. Cultivators from various countries had gathered here. Although there were many people, no one dared to cause trouble. After all, they had been warned by their sects before coming here. Everyone's purpose in coming here was naturally to find Niu Yud. At the arched entrance of the main courtyard, Qin Jiaxing stood there like a door god. He looked at the group of people in front of him and said indifferently, "Come one by one. Don't rush. You can only enter if you pay." A large group of late-stage tribulation passing experts stared at Qin Jiaxing, who was guarding the entrance. A mere early-stage tribulation passing expert actually dared to block their way. However, they couldn't do anything about it. Who told them to ask for help? Moreover, the people guarding the entrance were the mysterious Niu Yud subordinates. To be honest, when Qin Jiaxing first faced so many late-stage tribulation passing experts, it would be a lie to say that he wasn't afraid. He was so scared that his legs and stomach turned to jelly. But now, a person angrily strode out. Qin Jiaxing pointed at the nose of a late-stage tribulation passing cultivator and said coldly, "It's your turn." The person stared at Qin Jiaxing and sneered, waiting to see what would happen. Gritting his teeth, he took out a storage bag and stuffed it into the person's hand. Just as he was about to rush inside, Qin Jiaxing grabbed him. "Wait!" The person shouted, "Let go!" He wanted to kill Qin Jiaxing on the spot. Yes. 100,000 high-grade spirit stones. Not a bad amount. After Qin Jiaxing injected his divine sense into the bag, he let go of the person, waved his hand and said, "You can go in." "You." The person was so angry that he clenched his fists and the bones in his body made cracking sounds. Qin Jiaxing coldly snorted and said expressionlessly, "Senior Niu's time is very precious. If you don't want to go in, then please get out of the way. There are people waiting behind you. However, you should know the rules, right? The money you received is not refundable." Chapter 549. That person flicked his sleeves and entered with a muffled sound. "Young man, be more polite with your words. Don't be too ruthless and leave some leeway for us to meet in the future." The one who said this was none other than Guan Zhongkai, who had a huge battle with Yu Qianqiu. He was originally in charge of the World Commerce Association's branch in Gold Casting City. After his master Sikongju arrived, he was sent over to invite Niu Yud. Because of Ghost Village's one-armed elder, it was inconvenient for a soul formation expert to personally come, so Sikongju could only let his disciple go first. What made Guan Zhongkai depressed was that many people from various countries came to invite Niu Yud, but Niu Yud refused to come out of Ghost Village. Those who wanted to see him had to line up. This ostentatious display was really not bad. The most infuriating thing was that Niu Yud actually raised the price. Those who wanted to see him had to pay a meeting fee of 100,000 high-grade spirit stones, otherwise he wouldn't see them. This was simply looting a burning house. If it wasn't for Ghost Village's one-armed elder having enough face and Niu Yud's unfathomable cultivation, Ghost Village would definitely be trampled to the ground today. Guan Zhongkai waited for half a day and saw this gatekeeper's arrogance and rudeness. Now that it was his turn and he was so close, he couldn't help but warn him. "Leave some leeway. There's such a saying in the cultivation world." Qin Jiaxing stood on the steps and glanced at him condescendingly. "When I was acting like a grandson in the past, I was polite to everyone, but I didn't see anyone leave me any leeway. They still didn't treat you as a human. Furthermore, I didn't go all out. I was just following Senior Nyo's instructions and doing official business." "All right. Cut the crap and see if you have enough money in your pockets. If not, then move aside and don't affect others." "You." Guan Zhongkai had the urge to go berserk and hit someone. A purple-clothed person behind him pulled him back and sighed, "Brother Guan, why bother with him? He's just a petty person intoxicated by success. There's still a long way to go." This person was Yulan Du, who had been hanging out with Guan Zhongkai for a long time. When he said this, his tone was long and he even pulled Guan Zhongkai towards the one-armed elder pruning branches at the side of the wall. He seemed to be telling Guan Zhongkai to endure it for now and find a chance to deal with this dog who relied on his master's power. Threat. "If I follow boss closely, I won't be afraid no matter where I go." Qin Jiaxing stood there carelessly, still looking down on everyone else. He felt great in his heart. In his entire life, he had never dreamed that there would be a day where he would be able to dictate everything to a few hundred experts at the end of the Tribulation Transcendence stage. He had caused them to lose their temper and become obedient in front of him. Whether or not he would be retaliated against in the future was a matter for the future. In short, he had such a good time in his life. Even if he died, it would be worth it. When he thought of this, Qin Jiaxing straightened his back a little more. His calm gaze slowly swept across the crowd below. His bearing was steady and graceful, and he had the demeanor of a master. If a person wasn't afraid of anything and didn't care about anything, he would naturally be strong without any desires. The rogue cultivators who were huddled in the surroundings stared at Qin Jiaxing enviously. He thought to himself, "This guy has finally made a name for himself. He's so bold that he dares to order a group of experts at the final stage of the Crossing Calamity stage. I'm so envious." Not long after, the person who went in earlier came out with an ashen face. Many people asked him what was going on, but he didn't answer and quickly flew away after he went out. The group of people looked at each other. They didn't know what Niu Yud did to the people who went in. Why did none of them have a good expression when they came out? "Next!" Qin Jiaxing shouted in a voice that was neither loud nor soft. Guan Zhongkai gritted his teeth as he took out a storage bag and handed it over. With the previous example, he wasn't in a hurry. He waited for the arrogant guy at the door to count the spirit stones and get his permission before he strode in. The courtyard was deep and serene. After passing through the plum trees on both sides, he saw two people standing on a platform at the entrance of the main hall. The person standing to the side was expressionless, while the person facing him was staring at him with a smile. TSK TSK. Foe, we meet again. When Yu Qianqiu saw that the person who came was actually Guan Zhongkai, he smiled even more happily. This must be Mr. Niu Yud. Guan Zhongkai didn't like this Niu Yud very much. He was the same as the guards outside and liked to look down on people. How could he greet a guest like this? However, he still forced a smile and cupped his fists at Yu Qianqiu. I'm Guan Zhongkai from the World Commerce Association. I'm here to meet you. I have something to discuss with you. As he spoke, he sized up the main hall, implying that they should go in and talk. Yu Qianqiu smiled and nodded. He turned around and slowly walked towards the main hall with his hands behind his back. Just as Guan Zhongkai went up the stairs, the person beside him interrupted and stopped him. The person said expressionlessly, "You've seen Senior Niu's face. Please go back. If you still want to talk to Senior Niu, please pay more. 200,000 superior grade spirit stones." Guan Zhongkai was stunned. When he reacted, his expression twitched. Are you kidding me? I paid 100,000 superior grade spirit stones. Just a meeting and that's it. That's right. Fu Chun didn't hide and explained cleanly. That 100,000 superior grade spirit stones is just the meeting fee. It doesn't include the cost of the conversation. Senior Niu's time is very precious. It's already rare that he's willing to meet you for 100,000 superior grade spirit stones. If you want to take up Senior Niu's time to chat, you naturally have to pay more. You guys must be crazy for money. 100,000 superior grade spirit stones for just one meeting? Guan Zhongkai was furious. He felt like he had been cheated. Please calm down. Fu Chun was neither arrogant nor rash. She continued politely. This rule isn't just for you. Everyone who came in before followed it. There were no exceptions. Please forgive me. Why didn't you say so earlier? You guys are cheating people on purpose. Of course not. Fu Chun said curiously, I told everyone who went out to tell the rules here to the people outside. Didn't they say anything? That can't be, right? Guan Zhongkai was stunned. He finally understood now. No wonder everyone who went out had a bad expression. When he asked them what was wrong, none of them answered. It seemed like they had suffered a loss and didn't want others to take advantage of them, so they deliberately hid it. If it's inconvenient, please return. Senior Niu's time is precious and he has a bad temper. If you take too long, you might attract unnecessary trouble. Fu Chun raised her hand politely to send them off. This was a blatant threat. Guan Zhongkai's face turned green and red. But what could he do? He had to bear with it. If he came here and told his master that he spent 100,000 superior grade spirit stones and didn't even have a single conversation with Niu Yud, he would be scolded to death by his master. What he was most afraid of was that he couldn't see through Niu Yud's cultivation. It was obviously higher than his. Even if he wanted to lose his temper, he had to consider the consequences. 200,000 high-grade spirit stones for a simple conversation, isn't it a little too expensive? Guan Zhongkai was clearly admitting defeat since he could say such words. He had no choice. Money was a small matter. He wasn't spending his own money. The key was to complete the task his master gave him. How aggrieved. No. 200,000 isn't expensive at all. Fu Chun waved her hand and said, Senior Niu said that his value is the lowest and very fair. If it was the world's #1 expert, by Changchun, who wants to meet him. I'm afraid that even if you spend 100 million superior grade spirit stones, he might not even meet you, let alone chat with him. How can this be compared? Guan Zhongkai almost choked to death. What kind of person was Bai Changchun? He couldn't be measured with money. Moreover, he wouldn't do such a vulgar thing. As long as he asked, people would give him money. Why can't it be compared? Everyone has a value. Look. Fu Chun counted with her fingers, wanting to reason with him. Guan Zhongkai felt his scalp go numb. He quickly raised his hand and said, all right. You don't have to say any more. I admit defeat. 200,000, right? I'll give it to you. It took half a day to queue up. Master was still waiting in Gold Casting City. If this continued, how long would Master have to wait? Guan Zhongkai quickly rummaged through his storage bag and took out 200,000 superior-grade spirit stones. He stuffed them into Fu Chun's hands and said helplessly, count them. Fu Chun counted expressionlessly. She had become numb from counting money. She had long lost the excitement she had in the beginning. Boss's prepared excuses were used one after another. Today, she had finally seen it. In the past, she would fight over a piece of superior-grade spirit stone. Now, it was like child's play. This was called earning money. But then again, Boss was probably the only one who dared to play like this in the cultivation world. Please. Fu Chun kept the storage bag and respectfully led the way. This service attitude finally made Guan Zhongkai feel a little better in his heart. Yu Qianqiu smiled as he sat at the coffee table in the main hall. He held a cup of tea and took a sip. His eyes were focused on the clear tea in the cup. Fu Chun led him to his side and pointed to an empty seat on the other side of the coffee table. He said to Guan Zhongkai, please take a seat. The price to pay to speak to Mr. isn't small. Guan Zhongkai sat down and said sarcastically. Yu Qianqiu smiled and didn't reply. Guan Zhongkai frowned and said, don't tell me you want to collect money again. Please wait. Fu Chun said politely. He took out a transparent hourglass from his storage bag. It looked like it was carved from a single piece of crystal. It wasn't big and looked small. The design was not bad. Fu Chun placed the hourglass upside down on the coffee table. After the sound of flowing sand could be heard, he quietly retreated to the side. Ah! Guan Zhongkai pointed at the hourglass and said in surprise, what does this mean? Are you going to collect money by the hour? Begin. Yu Qianqiu laughed and finally spoke. He placed the teacup on the table and pointed at the hourglass. You're talking about this. There are too many people looking for me. I have no choice but to do this. Otherwise, they would come and talk to me for half a day. When will it end? I'm a soft-hearted person. I can't refuse to see people looking for me. So, I can only set some harsh conditions. Please excuse me. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.